Girls Gone Wild, Matt Cox style. She steals $108 million. How much time you give her, Matt Cox?
Bet she got 10 because she's probably a cutie. No.
I mean,
You saw the photo.
yeah. So Matt, it's Women's History Month.
No.
It is. It is. And I'm here to help you with your female demographic.
Which is low.
I have stories.
It's like 8%.
This is spring break. Girls Gone Wild, Matt Cox style. I have a series of stories today about federal crimes committed by women.
I love it.
Okay.
Throw them in prison.
All right.
Let's get rid of these chicks.
Christy Felkins of Nevada, sick and tired of her ex-husband. Real pain in the ass. So she did what all frustrated ex-wives do. She goes on the dark web to hire a hitman. And she finds the Besa Mafia website. And she immediately is recontacted by someone on the other end. They're playing Let's Make a Deal. She sends them $5,000 in Bitcoin for the hit.
Okay.
Okay. And gives them the address of the ex-husband in Chico, California.
I'm hoping that the 5 was just a down payment. There's more to come once she gets insurance. I always hate it when they're like, it's like, here's $3,000 and some jewelry. It's like, what? Who's doing this? Who's working for this?
Well, you get what you pay for, right?
Yeah.
As we're about to see. She did offer an extra $4,000 on the back end if the hit could be expedited, and she told the killer that she didn't care if his new girlfriend was killed in the process. You'd throw her in for free. So Christy and the hitman go back and forth, planning the murder in great detail. How do you want to do it? You want it this way? You want it that way? Christy said she wanted to make it look like a mugging. And so there was a kind of a reason why he was getting mugged, and the police would just write it off as another mugging. And she still had a large life insurance policy on the guy. So there's a payday for her also. It's not just revenge for Christy.
Okay. Do we know how much?
The life insurance payout? I don't. But it must have been enough for this to be worth her time. But she may have done it for free. She doesn't like the guy. There's a problem here, okay?
She has a...
There's trouble in paradise.
She's holding resentment.
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Exactly. That'll kill you. It'll turn your hair gray. It'll make it less desirable, not more desirable. So bad news for Christy. The Besa Mafia website is fake, and it's run by a government informant who does work for the Homeland Security Illicit Digital Economy Task Force.
They're going to need to work on that name. So he gets this. He hears about this. He's been talking to her. He calls the FBI and says, "Hey."
Well, no. I mean, again, this is not an FBI case. This is a Homeland Security case. They get angry when the FBI takes credit for their work. This is the HSI, Homeland Security Investigations Digital. Illicit Digital Economy Task Force. Really rolls off the tongue.
Yeah. So he calls them and says, "I got one."
Well, he's an informant. That's his job, right? This is what he does. He's put up this website to lure people in.
Okay. How much money do these guys get?
The informants?
Yeah, like come on, that's not.
I used to pay my guys. I paid my guys quite a bit. But I was always very generous. I know other agents don't pay their informants anything.
Is it up to the agent on what to give them? Kind of.
Well, it's some combination of up to the agent and what the agent supervisor is going to kind of allow. What the budget is, right? Like something like this is probably worth more than them identifying some like Nigerian scam or something like that.
Right.
But basically
You're not going to tell me how much though. You think you got a couple grand?
How much?
10 grand?
Oh, okay. Well, you're asking. Yeah, I think this guy probably gets 10 grand per target.
10 grand per target. Okay.
Per successful prosecution, right?
Nice. Makes me want to set something up.
The informant also needs to testify, right? That's part of the deal. Like they want witnesses, not.
I'm ready.
Okay, all right.
Let's do this.
Hey, you got Colby.
Can he
here.
advertise?
Colby's a web genius. He can put up a Matthew Mafia website. You already have the credentials.
So are there rules like you can't advertise? They have to come to you?
Well, I think that's. I mean, obviously you can entrap somebody, but I don't think putting up a website on the dark web is necessarily entrapping.
Yeah, that's not I meant advertisement. Like you're going out looking for people. Like, hey, if you know anybody's got a problem,
it's a fine line. It's a fine line. I think my guess is that they've road tested this and that the website's cool. Like you put a website up there and just wait for the suckers to come in. So filed a criminal complaint against Christy. She got busted. Ex-boyfriend, fine. He's still living quite largely. Matt Cox?
What?
How much time do you give Christy?
You got hacked 9 months ago. So why are you just hearing about it now? That email about a data breach, it's way too late. The bad guys already have a head start. Look, I get it. We all have to give out our personal information to banks, stores, websites. But these companies take forever to tell you when they've been hacked. IBM says it takes them 277 days to report a breach. And free credit monitoring after the fact, that's like locking your door after the burglar has stolen all your stuff. That's why I use Aura, the sponsor of today's video. Aura watches over my personal data, like my social security number, and scans billions of places, including the dark web and court records. If something's wrong, they tell me fast, so I can do something about it. And if something happens, Aura has $5 million in ID theft insurance to help fix it. But Aura isn't just for alerts. They also give you a VPN to keep your internet private, a password manager to keep your login safe, antivirus software to stop hackers, data broker removal so companies stop selling your information. I know keeping your information safe can seem overwhelming, so why not let Aura do the hard work for you? Try it free for 14 days at aura.com/Matt and see if your information is already out there.
Matt Cox?
What?
How much time do you give Christy?
I don't know. I'd have to see the reaction because you know what they do.
Here's what she looked like.
No,
That was her reaction.
They have the ex-boyfriend lay down. They pour some ketchup on him. They take some photos, and then they send the photo. They take some photos. Then they have the cop show up with the photo. And he goes and says, I have some bad news for you. Yeah. And they show her the photo.
That's the way we used to do it at FBI Chicago.
Right?
For sure,
and then I'd have to see what her reaction was, really, because that makes it much worse. If she does a full-blown...
Let's say she jumped up like a leprechaun and clicked her heels.
What is that? Like she was happy?
Yeah, of course. She got what she paid for. How much time are you going to give her, Matt Cox?
I don't know. And she threw in the girlfriend, too.
Yeah. More like, hey, if the girlfriend gets caught in the crossfire, no harm, no foul. It wasn't like kill the girlfriend.
Right. If she's home, like don't feel you need to come back.
The extra $4,000 was for expediting it. She didn't want to wait around.
Yeah.
She wanted priority shipping. How much time you give her, Matt?
I feel like because it didn't happen, and for some reason, not that she didn't want it to, I don't know. I feel like
no criminal history, right?
None.
This is her first rodeo.
First time she got caught.
Yeah. I mean, her ex-boyfriends turn around to tell their tales at least.
Between, I'd say 15 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
You're a hanging judge.
Really? I was going to say between 10 and 15.
She got 5.
5? That's it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 5 years.
And this was federal?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not right.
All right. Well, okay. You want it to be more?
Yeah, I do. Because I feel like I'm on the other
like
end
a true ex-husband.
I feel like I'm on the other end of that argument.
All right, let's go on to our second story.
Okay.
52-year-old Stacy League walks into the Comerica Bank in Irving, Texas. I'd like to see the manager. Manager comes out. She says, "This is a bank robbery. Give me your money." So the bank manager fills a courier bag. Stacy pulls out a 9mm pistol, points it at the bank manager and says, "You're coming with me. I need a hostage."
Oh my God. She's up to like 15 to 20 years.
The manager is freaked out, but he's got a gun pointed at him. He starts walking outside. She's marching him. And they kind of get to her car. And he is like, F this noise. He takes his chances, turns 90 degrees, and runs to the McDonald's next door. She does not shoot him in the back.
Good for her. Good for her.
This goes toward her potential sentencing later when I ask you. So she drives away with the cash and the pistol. She's making her getaway. Stacy feels terrible about what she's done. She feels awful about it. She drives past a firehouse. She pulls into the firehouse and with the gun and the bag of money and says, "Fireman, I just robbed a bank. I feel terrible. I'd like to turn myself in to the fireman." Fireman, call the cops.
I feel like this is a theme to a porno. Like
Right. Yeah, exactly. Bow, chicka, bow, bow.
They come, four shirtless firemen come down the pole.
Right. So she feels terrible. She turns herself in. I would ask, what would you give her? But you need to know one other set of facts.
Okay.
She'd done this before.
Okay. Oh my God.
Stacy's a frequent flyer. Stacy, back in 2019, robbed the same Comerica Bank, that time with a rifle, got guilty and turned herself in at the local police department.
She has mental problems.
You think so, Matt? You think so? Wow.
I'm gonna say.
How much time are you gonna give her?
Well, we have a TikTok about this.
I was gonna say she moved the guy. She told him to come with. That's the big one. The guns. All of these are problems clearly, but every one of them's an enhancement.
Yeah.
She moved the guy under threat.
Yeah, it's almost like kidnapping.
That is kidnapping.
Okay.
I'd say a minimum. If it was a guy, I would say 20 to 25 years. If he pled guilty.
Right. Stacey pleads guilty, obviously.
Yeah, but she's a woman. And I'm going to go out of my way here and say women get much lighter sentences than men do.
So bitter.
We're about to see.
We're trying to bring the women demographic to the table here.
And she's a felon in possession of a firearm.
Right. She's got problems.
across the
She's
board.
got problems on top of problems.
It's just 25 years minimum.
You think 25 is what she got?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Okay. So I know that you would give
I
her
need to calm
25.
down. I need to
What
calm
do you
down.
What do you think she actually got?
10? Did she get 10? Oh, this is wrong.
Is that your guess?
I think
Final
she
answer, Matt Cox?
deserves 25. I'll bet she got 10 because she's probably a cutie or she cried. No.
I mean,
You saw the photo.
Yeah.
You're like,
I mean, any port in a storm, but, but no, she's not my type.
okay.
Not my type. 13 years.
13 years.
Yeah.
That is such bullshit.
Here's the question. Do you think she's one of these people who just got like in love with the idea of being institutionalized? Like she wanted
How long had she been out?
well, I mean, we could do some math. So she got 3 years for that first robbery in 2019. And so that puts her at 2020. I think she hadn't been out that long because the story happened in like 2022, 2023.
No, so she's still locked up.
Oh, yeah. Today she's still locked up. But
If
she
anybody
only
wants
got,
to write Christy a letter, we'll leave find an
there's a
inmate.
website out there. You can meet the girls online and form a relationship with them.
You go to bop.gov and find out where they're at and write them a letter.
Stacey League. She just needs some. She
Need some commissary
she
money.
needs a guy, to set her straight.
That's the problem is she didn't have a guy to say, hey, lady.
Bad idea. Yeah. Do you know people though who kind of like kept going back to prison on purpose because that's all they knew and that's where they were made themselves at home?
Absolutely. My buddy Zach and I talk about a guy. Oh gosh, Palmer. His name was Palmer. I can never remember his name either because I've had this conversation. I think I've told this story twice.
Okay.
And I typically can't remember his name. Name was Palmer though. Palmer, white guy. I don't know why that means anything, but I'm gonna say it.
It does good. When you say the race, it does good for TikToks. I knew this guy, white guy. I knew this guy, black
Because
guy.
people in the comment section hate me.
They go
for it.
bananas.
What does
Yeah.
that matter?
Oh, yeah.
What are you saying that?
Oh, trust me. When I told that story about the Indian guy who beat off on the plane, well, buckle in.
So Palmer, thin white guy, and he had robbed a bank
Okay.
with a note. I think with a note. Went out, met a couple girls, got a couple girls, blew the money over the course of 3 days, and then turned himself in.
Okay.
Goes to jail for, I want to say 3 years, 4 years. He gets out, gets a job, can't make it. Just can't pay his bills, can't do it, and he decides to go ahead and rob another bank. Second time, I want to say he got 6 or 7 years. Got out, went to a halfway house, tried desperately to make a living, couldn't do it, and which is what's so funny is Palmer was a smart guy, smart, clean cut, white guy, spoke well, educated, could not function. He just could never. He told Zach and I this, where I was like, "What are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?" And he said, "I have never been able to get a job that pays my bills." He goes, and I'm talking about I live in like boarding houses. I take the bus. I have
Right.
no bills. He goes, I've never been able to get a job that has paid me well enough to actually take care of myself. And it's weird. It's just odd, right? So. And I'll never forget this too. One time, I've told this story before. Palmer was an interesting guy. One time he decided he wanted to escape.
Okay.
And this was, I think the first two were like state prison bids, right? Like he did rob like a credit union or something. So he didn't get federal. He ended up, he wanted to get out of the prison. He put like 3 layers of sweatpants and sweat and clothes on, 3 or 4 layers, climbed through the barbed wire,
Right.
over 2 fences.
Allowing it to rip him up, but it's just ripping the clothing up.
Right. And he said by the time he was done, he said, I had half a shirt left.
Yeah.
And he was in his boxer shorts. Because that's how bad it had shredded.
The razor wire, just taking it apart.
Right. Got down, he said, got out, realized I'm standing outside the fence. I'm in my underwear. There's no way I'm getting out of here. There's no way I'm getting to the street. I don't have enough clothes left. Like this whole thing's gone wrong. Sat there for a little bit. He said, I'm looking up at the tower, waiting for the truck to drive around that drives around the prison, waiting, nothing happened. Finally, he says, he goes up to the tower and he bangs on the door of the tower. And the guy guarding the tower, they're tilted, the windows are tilted out, slides the window out, looks down, and he's standing up. He's like, hey. And the guy gets on the phone. He hears him say, I got a naked inmate downstairs, trying to get in outside the fence. And then it was like, what? And they come get him and grab him. I don't know how much time he got for that, but that's literally kind of things that he did.
He didn't even try to run for the horizon?
No, he didn't do it. No, he's just, like I said, he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
I don't remember him as being stupid, but he was also kind of an idiot.
Perhaps there was some poor judgment.
Yeah, I think there was some mental illness there.
Yeah.
But what happens is gets out, gets another job, can't do it, goes in, robs a bank again. This time I want to say he got, same thing, I want to say he got around 9 years, under 10. And that's when I met him at Coleman at the Medium at Coleman. At the Medium makes me think he did use a gun. So he was at the Medium. This was the 3rd time. And, he just, so yeah, there's that guy. And the other one was another guy, one other guy real quick,
Yeah.
It was an older guy named, oh gosh, what was his name? Because there was 2 of them. Oh gosh, it was like, I want to say this is his name. One of the guys' name was Bill and one was Billy, but that wasn't their name. But it was that kind of a name, right?
Yeah,
like Bill, Billy. Anyway, Bill was the older guy because his roommate was named Billy, and that's not their name. Oh, that makes me mad. So anyway, Bill was an older guy, probably close to 70 by the time I met him. He had robbed a bank in the 80s when federal prison was nice. It was club fed. Like you went
Practice
to
your golf swing. Yeah.
Exactly. You went to the chow line. It's like, yeah, I'll take the chicken and give me a piece of that steak too. Like it was like they fed you really well. Like the guards were polite to you. The guards used to wear jackets. Like they had collared, they looked like they were businessmen. Like that's how they looked. They didn't have guards uniforms.
Right.
All inmates were called by their first names. They're like Mr. So-and-so. They had a whole thing about trying to be respectful to the people that were in federal prison because they thought that would help acclimate them to be professional people when they got out, whatever. Yeah. Didn't work. So he went there. He was taken care of very well after the bank robbery, got out, went back into society, started a painting company, and he painted for the next 30 years. Now he was 66, 67 years old, divorced, no kids, has 2 sisters, and he needed a heart transplant. The problem was no insurance, and he's like, I could have the heart transplant, or not transplant, but like surgery. And his sisters were too old to take care of him. They're in their late 70s. He's like, I have nobody to take care of me. I cannot afford the surgery. He goes in, he robs a bank.
So the Bureau of Prisons would do the surgery on him and he would have the health care he deserves in his mind?
Turned himself in. He said, hung out for 2 or 3 days with the money. He said, stole like $7 grand, $6 grand, $3 grand. It was nothing, whatever the amount was.
Yeah.
And then turned himself in. He's a little old man. He's in his late 60s robbing a bank. Oh, man, that money. And he went there. He said, they gave me the surgery. They took care of me the whole time. He said, this is not what I thought I was coming back to, by the way. He's like, he said, I didn't know this was the prison. If I'd known prison was going to be like this, he's like, I'm remembering it back from the 80s.
Working on his tennis game.
Exactly. He's like, oh, this sucks. He said, I probably would just let myself die. Yeah. Anyway, and that was it. And he got like 6, he still got a ton of time. And even though they explained it to the judge, the judge was like, yeah, he still got like 6 or, even though I don't think the criminal history affected him, he still got like 6 or 7 because I think he did have a gun.
Yeah.
So those are the 2 times where I know guys that were just committing crimes, specifically bank robberies, because there's many other guys that do this. They'll get out, sell drugs, use drugs, get caught. Like they're reckless. They don't care. They know that prison's a bit. They're perfectly okay staying in prison. And I would have guys that got out of prison that used to say, well, if I ever really can't take care of myself, I mean, I do know the Bureau of Prisons will take care of me.
Yeah,
They're like, so I'll just go commit a crime. I'll go rob a bank or do something nonviolent, and I'll go back and they'll take care of me.
What's wrong with this picture? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My very first arrest as a brand new FBI agent in 1995 was a guy. I wasn't there. I wasn't at the scene of the crime, but the dude walks into a bank, little guy, looked exactly like Emmanuel Webster, Emmanuel Lewis, the guy who played Webster.
Oh, yeah.
Like a man-child.
Yeah,
and, walks in, hands a bank robbery note. The teller flips some kind of alarm or makes eye contact with a security guard. Shaky old guy in his 70s comes up behind him with a gun, puts the gun in the back of his head, and says, "You're under arrest." And the bank robber puts his hands up. Cops come, take him away, hand him off to the FBI, hands him to me. And the dude would not talk at all. Would not answer questions, wouldn't give us his name. So we run his prints, find out who the heck he is because he's got no ID on him. It turns out he had gotten out of federal prison that day for bank robbery. And he was, and I should have noticed this, but I was a new agent and I wasn't keen to it. He was wearing the blue Bureau of Prison sneakers on his feet, the canvas sneakers that prisoners always wore.
Yeah.
And so literally just marched him right back to the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Chicago. And, he ended up getting 8 years or whatever. But it was clear that he didn't want to go out. He had nothing. There was nothing for him on the streets.
Yeah. No, I get that. I have 2 more quick stories, just real quick.
It's your show, dude.
Comical, by the way. There was a guy when I was at the Medium. When I first got there, he had been there for a few months. So he was in my unit, so I saw him. And really remember him because he was a white guy. And he was actually, like, you could talk to him, right? Like most of these guys there'd be maybe out of 1,800 to 2,000 inmates in the Medium. Mm-hmm. Well, no, I think it was more like 1,600 in the Medium. There's maybe 30 white guys, 50 white guys, and almost all of them are there for meth.
Really?
Like they're all missing their teeth. Like you can't have a conversation with them.
Yeah.
One of my favorite phrases I ever heard as I was walking by a conversation with 2 guys, two of the white guys. I was just walked by and caught this glimpse of a conversation. And then one guy goes, "I'm telling you, guy's a fucking genius. Best meth I ever had." I was just like, okay, keep walking.
Chemist.
Yeah.
Breaking Bad. Yeah.
But this was a guy who was like kind of like a biker guy, right? Like he had a goatee and stuff, and but tall guy, like 6'4" or something, like so really kind of stuck out. But I talked to him a couple times. Nice guy. Got out, went to the halfway house, and he was telling him, it was like, what are you going to do? He's like, man, I'm only interested in doing 3 things. He said, he wanted to, what were they? 1 was get a piece of ass, right?
Naturally.
2 was he wanted to, and these may not even, I feel like I'm making it all, I don't remember all 3. 1 was get a piece of ass. 1 was go to like the dog track, and 1 was have like a steak dinner.
Okay.
So
3 lofty goals.
Yeah, that's all he wanted.
Yeah.
That's all he cared about, getting out. And keep in mind, this guy had been locked up for like 25 years. Mm-hmm. And then prior to that, he'd been out for a few years and was locked up like 5 years before that. Like his whole adult life. And from the age of like 16 to 18, 95% of the time he'd been in prison.
A lot of people like that.
Right. So he got out. He comes back, I'd say a year later, he comes back.
Same prison.
Yeah, same prison. Yeah, came back in. Like I want to say might have even been back in my unit. Uh-huh. Like, I mean, literally, it was like, saw him one day, and I think people had mentioned, by the way, so and so I had heard he got arrested. So he comes back, and I see him. I'm like, hey, what's going on? How's it going? And he's like, yeah, what's going on? And there was a couple other guys there, and so they all kind of go up to him, and we're all kind of talking to him. I'm really kind of standing there, and one of the guys goes, bro, so what happened? He said, he robbed the bank. And something, the same type of thing, he had like the shoes on or whatever. Mm-hmm. It was like he had only been in there for like a week.
Yeah.
And he robbed the bank and practically like robbed the bank, hung out for the day, went right back to the thing and blew his, like he wasn't supposed to leave. Like the whole thing is bad. Like you weren't supposed to leave, you left because you can walk right out. Like we were already looking for you. He went, robbed the bank and then went screwed around for the day, came back, and they're like, "What are you doing? Like, we're gonna call the police. Like, you're violated. You can't just leave." He's like, call them. They called them. But by that point, within a day or two after they grab him, they realize he's the one that robbed the bank. And one of these guys goes, "So, did you ever get to do the 3 things that you wanted to do?" Yeah. And he goes, "Well, I did 2 of the 3." And he said, 2 out of 3, that's not bad, man. That's not bad. And which was, he had a steak dinner. Yeah. He went to like the dog.
He didn't find a woman. Track, he didn't find a woman who was down for the guy right out of prison.
No. And so that was one. The other one was my old roommate. His name was Stu. Stu had an 80 IQ. Could not read.
Okay.
I'm going to say it again. I'm sorry to say this. Black guy. And they called him Dr. Feelgood. Uh-oh. He would give guys massages. That's what his hustle was. All right. Stu was massive.
You have to be. I mean, these massage, a good massage, you got to be strong.
It's just that he worked out all the time, and he would, this is one of these guys that he would make potions, right? Like, you're sick. Oh, I got something for you. And then he'd go heat up some water, and they would pour like he'd put like
Drano.
They'd make like what was it? Like they take Vicks that you rub under your nose. You're
not supposed to be ingesting
right.
that. Yeah.
He would put it in there and mix it up. They heat it up so much you don't really know it's necessarily in there. And then he put something, whatever, coffee or whatever else they thought was, and you guys would drink it. Yeah. Like, what are you doing? You're drinking a petroleum product. What are you doing? And he would, you got it. I'm like, absolutely not. I'm not drinking that. I'm not that sick.
That's funny.
So anyway, Stu had been in and out of prison his whole life. Stu's this one. You've heard me say this. He'd been shot 3 times, twice by himself.
Ooh,
2 of the 3.
That's an 80 IQ.
Yeah. He would go to rob drug dealers, right? And he'd grab the bag, and he'd have the gun like, "Give me," and he'd go to grab it, and they ain't back. He pulled the trigger. He shot himself once here. Another time he shot himself, I think once was in the forearm, once was in the hand, and another time he got shot because he kept robbing drug dealers over and over, and everybody knew him at that point.
Yeah.
So these guys would see him coming down the alley. They just pull their guns out and start shooting. He said one time he turned around, he got shot in the back of the leg. He could show you all of them. Like, this is one. You see the scar. Yeah. The other one's, and the other one, like, he had the bullet still in his leg. Anyway, Stu goes to the halfway house, gets there. He's there a week or two. This is after he's been in prison, out of prison, in prison. Stu also, by the way, told us stories about when they would, back in Atlanta, when it was the pen, it was super violent back in the 80s and 90s. Where they would get a shank and they would duct tape the shank, and they duct tape it around their hands
so it couldn't fall out of their hands.
Couldn't slip out. He said, because that blood's slippery. It's very slippery. It's not like water. It's slippery. I mean, like, okay. I mean, terrifying talking to two. Okay. So.
Can I tell you about my check kiting scheme?
Yeah. So exactly. I know what you're saying. It's the same thing in mortgages.
Yeah.
So he gets to the halfway house. He's there for a week. A couple of the other inmates convince him, where you messed up last time, Stu? You didn't rob a bank. You robbed the bank. Mm-hmm. And they're like, let's go rob a bank. And he's like, I got a car. We'll take the car. We'll pull up. You go in the bank, get it. We'll be ready. Jump in. I know a perfect business. They're like, yeah. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So takes a few days. They get the car.
I would think everyone's on their best behavior at a halfway house. No,
you would think.
Yeah. All right.
And so they get Stu. They go to the bank, and of course, these guys have set Stu up. Obviously, so they've already called their FBI agent and said, "So listen, there's this guy in the halfway house who's talking about robbing a bank. Yeah. And then they look into him. And they're like, oh, this guy, he's spent his whole life in prison. He's shooting people. He even shot 3 times himself." Twice. I don't feel like 2 of those count, but this is a violent guy. This guy's in and out all the time. And they're like, yeah, this is the bank we're going to bring him to. He says he wants us to pull up in the car. He's going to run in and rob it. And so they close the bank down. They're waiting for him. So they pull up. The door opens. He runs to the bank. They're, get on the ground. He gets on the ground. Straight back to Coleman, 25 years. And by the way, he's out now. Again.
Oh, really?
This guy he's probably 65 or 70 years old. He has probably spent over 50 years in prison.
Have him on the show.
He would be,
maybe don't let him use the bathroom unsupervised, but
he's terrifying. Like, he's one of these guys, hey, Cox. And it's not just me, by the way. He'd do this to anybody. It wasn't just me. But he'd be like, hey, you look, you something bothering you? No, why? Come in here, lay down. Let me rub that all that tension. I can see you got tension, and let me rub that out of you. Nah, Stu, I'm good. You know they call me Dr. Feelgood. I know they do, Stu, and I know you'd love to get your hands.
Was he
on
gay
me.
for this day?
I don't know what you'd call it for him. Like I was so terrified of this guy, and it was so funny is how many guys. You'd walk by the cell and you'd look in because literally Stu was my cellie for it took about 2 or 3 weeks for me to get out of the cell because my counselor he was like on vacation. So I couldn't get my cell moved. But I tell you what, I slept on my back the whole time. And Stu's like, you want the bottom up? Nope, I'm good up here. Yeah. I'm up top safer. I'm safe. I don't need to be laying down sleeping. Let me put it this way. You ever hear there's nothing more romantic than kissing someone while they're, or waking up and feeling someone kiss you while you're asleep, okay. And they say, unless you're in prison. Whenever I hear that TikTok or that little thing, my first thought is my 3 weeks in the cell with Stu.
I'm glad you brought up romance because I have 2 romance stories for you.
Okay.
First one, 34-year-old Sarah Beth Clendaniel of Maryland. Sarah Beth, lonely white power lady looking for love.
White power?
Yeah,
What'd you say?
Like a white supremacist.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, did I miss that?
Yeah, no, she's a white supremacist. But
of course not.
But that's a turnoff to some dudes. Some dudes aren't into it. So she goes online, but she finds a guy, Orlando, Florida, not far from here, a neo-Nazi group called Atomwaffen, run by 28-year-old Brandon Russell, and they become online text buddies. It's a little romantic.
It does sound romantic.
She's in Maryland. He's in Orlando. So,
we got to get her over here.
Not insurmountable, but in their text messages, as they're talking, they begin to plot a way for Sarah Beth to shut down the electrical grid in Baltimore, Maryland, a predominantly black city. The idea
I feel like I've had this whole conversation myself.
The idea is that if they could plunge Baltimore into darkness, it would make the black people of Baltimore begin rioting, which would then spark the race war that they've been waiting for. That's the plan.
This is Turner Diaries.
It's the plan. Not saying it's a good plan. Not saying I approve of this plan, but I'm saying it was the plan. But their planning was no joke. They actually take the time to get schematics of the electrical substations kind of surrounding Baltimore, taking a look at what the vulnerabilities are. And the idea was that Sarah Beth was going to start shooting at them with high-power rifles to disable the infrastructure and go from one substation to the next until Baltimore was plunged into darkness.
And what's the guy's name?
Brandon Russell.
What's Brandon doing? He's managing. Is he directing from
afar,
Orlando?
From afar. But what Brandon does, Brandon loops in one of his trusted Atomwaffen lieutenants who happen to also be in Maryland to purchase the ammo and the rifle for Sarah Beth because she was a felon and couldn't buy a gun for herself.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
And so he assigns the same lieutenant to be her driver for the attack. Bad news for Sarah Beth. That lieutenant?
What?
FBI informant.
Right, yeah.
Right? FBI informant. FBI knew of Atomwaffen, knew that there may be some problems with this group, and made sure they had a trusted informant there as Brandon Russell's right-hand man.
Oh, Brandon.
Oh, Brandon. Oh, Sarah Beth. And so...
This could have been a Lifetime movie.
So the source notifies the FBI about the plot, of course, and the agents begin monitoring all the conversations and the activity and the planning, and they arrest Brandon and Sarah Beth before they could actually spark this race war that they had planned. So Sarah Beth pleads guilty to a conspiracy charge, as well as being.
Do they wait for her to pull? Do they wait for her to pull up in front of a substation with the weapons, or they how they grab it? They just knock on her door.
My understanding is that they let it go far enough to get the evidence they needed, but not so far that there was ever a gun placed in her hands.
Okay,
right. I mean, that's how
that's
I would
probably
have done
an issue.
Things could go horribly sideways when she started giving people like live rifles to go start a race war. All right, so
you give her a bunch of blanks. Could you imagine you give her a bunch of blanks, and then you wait for her to get out there. These things are tough.
so Brandon just had his trial.
Okay.
Sarah Beth did not testify against him.
Get out of here. She's a gangster, huh?
True love, dude. True love.
You're so serious. Okay.
True love. Now, Sarah Beth pleads guilty herself to a conspiracy charge as well as being a felon in possession of a firearm. Loverboy is awaiting sentencing right now. I have no idea what's going to become of him. Probably nothing good. How much he gives Sarah Beth, Matt Cox?
We don't know, but she hasn't gotten sentenced, you said?
No, Sarah Beth has been sentenced.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because she wasn't testifying, so she's not waiting for her deal.
Convicted felon.
I will say that she, at her sentencing, she told the judge, listen, I'm still a Nazi, but I will never, ever act upon it again.
She's learning a lesson.
Yeah. This is much to step in the right direction.
Judge, it's all we can ask for, Sarah.
We can't control what's in our heart.
Oh my God. What does Sarah look like? I'm a big believer in
I give her a 4.
I'm a big believer in a downward departure. If they're an 8 or above, that should be like a.
No, she's never seen an 8. Never seen an 8. I mean, not terrible. I mean, you've done worse, but not terrible, Matt Cox.
I've done.
Not terrible. I mean, we could look up. Colby can splice photos in. This is all publicly available information. Kind of mousy.
Oh, we got to see Sarah. Let's see Sarah. Come on.
Sarah Beth Clendaniel, Clendaniel.
I'll never again act on. How much time did she get? Okay,
That's what I'm asking.
I know. Let me think about
Answer
that.
the question, Matt. How much time do you give
She's
Sarah
got to
Beth?
get 10 years at least.
10?
I'm going down. If she was a man, she's getting 15 to 20 years.
You think she gets 10? You give her 10?
Yeah, and only because she's she gets 15 to 20. What'd she get? Stop. Don't tell me she's in love and the judge feels bad for her.
18 years.
Oh, 18 years? That's reasonable. Reasonable.
Okay, yeah.
She's a convicted felon.
With felon with a firearm.
With a firearm. She's
Trying to plot a race war.
Yeah, extensive
Frowned
planning.
on even in today's society.
Extensive planning.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that's reasonable. Mm-hmm. No doubt she would have gone through with it. It's not like, hey, no, at the last minute, she might have changed her mind. No. We got the schematics down. We got everything. We got the guns. We got the...
All right. Let's talk about another romantic story.
Okay.
I think you can have some insights into this one. Some real insights. This is a story of love. Okay. It's a romantic story. And this one I actually did investigate. Okay. So by way of background, and we don't need to get into the whole background, Abu Muhammad was there during the Syrian, from Syria.
Not that it matters.
Well, I mean, his name's Abu Muhammad. He's not from Dublin. He was a Afghan mujahideen in the original Afghanistan war against the Soviet Union, was tight with Osama bin Laden, was there during the founding of Al-Qaeda, came to the U.S., opened a Islamic charity that was actually funneling money to terrorist groups overseas. After the 9/11 attacks, I was in charge. I was on a team of people who investigated him and locked him up. So while he pleads guilty, he's awaiting sentencing, but he's cooperating with us. He's meeting with us. During the course of his cooperation...
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold on.
Yeah.
He was funneling money.
He had a charity that
was funneling money to...
Al-Qaeda and other groups.
So you guys catch him doing that?
Yeah.
Okay, then he cooperates.
Right. He pleads guilty.
Right.
And sits and he's cooperating. But here's where the story begins with the lady.
Okay.
Because this is ladies' night. We're doing Girls Gone Wild. Stay focused. During the course of his cooperation, which wasn't all that great, honestly.
I feel like he could have done more.
And he was underperforming as a cooperator. He's housed at the Metropolitan Correction Center, the federal jail in Chicago. Let me give you the architecture of this. It's a 28-story high-rise in the downtown business district of Chicago. It's an MCC. It's 28 stories. And you can serve up to 18 months there of your sentence, but mostly it's a jail awaiting people as they're coming and going to court. It's like a couple blocks away from the courthouse.
Okay.
On the roof of the MCC, again, a giant, huge building, is an exercise yard on the roof itself, on the 28th floor, which has like chicken wire above it so no one can do like a helicopter escape.
Right.
But there's lots of nooks and crannies, and you can run. I don't know if there's weights or how that works, and probably not. But I never spent any time there. Oddly enough, the FBI in Chicago used to have their parking lot there at the MCC, and so the prisoners could look out from their windows at the exercise yard and see the FBI agents who parked on the roof of the parking lot, which is only like 4 or 5 stories. And oftentimes we would park their cars when we would seize their cars right there, and they would see the FBI agents like getting into these cars and driving around, and you'd hear them yelling from up top, like, "That's my Lamborghini, car." Right, right. So. But there was an interesting architectural phenomenon that I want to know if you've heard of this, where at the MCC, it was boy floor, girl floor, boy floor, girl floor. So obviously the men and women weren't housed together, but there was a lot of women prisoners because it was also an immigration jail while you're awaiting your deportation. And so at this prison, you could get on your hands and knees at the toilet and scoop the water out of the toilet and put your head in the toilet and yell, "Can you hear me?" And then a woman who was doing the same thing on the next floor was like, "Yes, I hear you." And you could carry on a phone conversation through the pipes with a romantic woman looking for hot, hot prison action.
This is very common. Listen, I can tell you right now.
You've heard of this.
An ACDC, Atlanta City Detention Center, it's the same setup. There were guys that would, literally they're hugging the toilet.
Yeah.
Like they're leaning against the toilet, hugging it, and they're in there for hours.
Yeah.
And what was really funny was the guys that would say, "What time is it, man?" Well, you go, "I don't know. It's like 7:45. Okay. Remind me at 8, bro. I got a date at 8. And be like, "A date?" Be like, yeah, my girl's going to be talking to me like she's in room such and such, and she'll go to this room, and I'm going to this room, and we're going to empty out the toilets, and we're talking. And they'll go in there for hours and talk.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's what happened with Abu Muhammad. He had a woman on the next floor.
God.
He had a woman on the next floor. He didn't know, I don't know how much he knew about her, but she was a Thai woman whose name was Porn, which is an actual name in Thai. They don't pronounce the R, but we'll call her Porn.
Okay.
And they would have like phone sex through the toilets as they're talking to each other. He never laid eyes on her. She never laid eyes on him, but they were in love with each other, man. They were in love.
That's true love.
Absolutely.
That's what that is.
Here's where it gets weird.
This is where it gets weird?
It gets better.
Okay.
Right. So the women at the MCC, to pass the time, were allowed to crochet. Are you familiar with crocheting?
Of course, I've seen a lot of the gangsters in prison crochet.
Okay, right.
You see the 60-year-old guy with tats all over his.
Yeah. Yarn and a big kind of like benign plastic hook, and you can make stuff out of it. So the women at the MCC would crochet underpants for themselves, wear the underpants, get themselves worked up in the underpants, and make arrangements to hide their crocheted yarn underpants at the exercise yard of the MCC in a certain nook, cranny, or corner. So their toilet boyfriends could then find the gift that they left them, and they could enjoy the aroma and the sensation and the connection.
This is horrible. This is horrible. As if being in prison isn't bad enough. These guys have just brought it down to
The heart wants what the heart wants, Matthew Cox. I mean, don't be so judgy.
My God.
None of this was a problem until Abu Muhammad asked her to leave one of the crochet hooks up there. And she did, and then he is found kind of recovering and gets caught recovering the crochet hook. The theory we had at the time is that he was going to try to sharpen the crochet hook and maybe hurt somebody with it to mount an escape. We never really found out.
Or he maybe just wanted a shank. You know, these guys will make shanks out of anything.
Right. So,
But that would be a good one.
We interviewed him. He didn't want to talk about it. I interviewed Porn, the Thai lady who was awaiting deportation, and she told the whole story. And it was star-crossed lovers. Neither of them really got punished. She was on her way out to Thailand anyway, and he was in his way to a long, long stint in federal prison for material support of terrorism and fraud charges and stuff like that. So anyway, but I'm just surprised that you had heard about this phenomenon. I was fascinated by this. Again, I'm a guy. I'm boring, right? I don't have any toilet girlfriends. And,
I'm not sure this is fascinating, maybe, but not exciting or anything.
Not exciting. It's just fascinating to me. To me, it says something about the human condition that you're willing to debase yourself so much to like scoop the water out of a toilet, so you could just have a connection with a woman of the opposite sex.
Oh my God! They make all kinds of stuff into it. They'll make fires in the toilet. You know, they're made well. In there, they're probably. I don't know if they have the stainless steel ones, and in Coleman they have the porcelain ones. But some of these, if you have the stainless steel ones, these guys will start like entire fires. They'll heat stuff up.
It's like a hibachi.
Yeah, it's amazing. They would steal oil or grease or whatever you do. I don't even know how it works, but they'd steal out of the kitchen little bits and pieces at a time, and they would take the trash cans. You ever hear of this? They would fill up the trash can with oil, and they would take they call it a stinger. You know what a stinger is?
No.
A stinger, you plug it into the wall, and it's two pieces of metal with another piece of metal in between it, and if you put it in water, it boils your water. Oh, okay. So they would take that and they boil the oil, and then they would deep fry. Like they'd take wraps, like they take the what are those? I call them wraps. I don't know what you call them.
A burrito?
Like a burrito wrap. Yeah,
okay,
that's what I would call
tortilla.
them. Right? Yeah, tortilla. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Tortilla. And then they would put meat in it, and they'd roll it up, and they'd deep fry it, and then they'd wrap that up, and these guys would make on like a Friday night, they'd make like 100, 200.
Churro stand.
Yeah, and then you'd have order. You'd come, hey man, can I get 2 of them? Bro, if you're not on the list, man, Cox, you're not on the list. Come on, man, you give me 1 of them. You got 100 of them up there. You're arguing like that. They'd be like, man, all right, come on, I got $3 right now. $3 right now, bro. Yeah. Right, you got $3 in stamps on you? Yes, $3. All right, give me the 3. But they were amazing. Like it was like free world food.
I think it's like romance. People have that much of a desire for deep fried food, just like they have that desire for human contact with a female.
You would be shocked at what these guys come up with in there.
Here's my question. Where are the guards during all this?
There's 150 inmates, 180 inmates. The guards, they just want to sit in their office and play on their phone. They don't want, as long as you guys aren't stabbing each other, like, leave me alone.
You have all the phone sex in the toilet as you want.
Yeah, that's fine.
Deep fry your churros in the toilet all you want.
Clean up after yourself. And then they know that they walk the perimeter, let's say once an hour. Mm-hmm. Well, guys are looking out. Even if the guards were diligent, you're not going to catch me. There's 180 guys watching you while you're watching us. As soon as you walk out of your office, they're going to get whoop, 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 whoop. Everybody just straightens up. Hey, the guard's coming. Give me 5 minutes. You just stand there. Guard walks by you. Stop. Yeah. He walks by. Hey, baby, what's going on?
Let me put you on hold. All right, let's do another one. Matt Cox, what's an affinity fraud?
An infinity fraud. Affinity fraud is when you take advantage of, I think of it as your family members or your close friends. Mm-hmm. That's what I think of it as.
Yeah, I mean, it's people. The affinity group can be anything.
Okay.
And so a lot of times it's a church. Mormons ripping off Mormons, right. Baptists ripping off Baptists.
So it's people you're in your kind of
right. And the reason affinity frauds work is because there's a implied sense of trust with people in your social circle, right? That the idea that a Mormon ripping off other Mormons is just so unthinkable to Mormons that their guard gets down. There's no way this guy would rip me off. He's in my CrossFit gym.
Yeah. Right.
Suzette Angway of Hawaii, this was my case. She ran an investment company called Money Sense. And you knew it was legit because the S in sense was a dollar sign. Right. So it's clear that she knew a lot about finance. She was a Pop Warner football mom. Pop Warner football? It's kind of a West Coast thing. It's Pee Wee football.
Okay.
I don't know who Pop Warner was. I imagine he was some historical coach of youth and all that. But the Pop Warner football league, the 85-pound team is from Venice, California, is going to play the 85-pound team from Irvine, California, and all that. But in Hawaii, they had Pop Warner football, and that would be kind of a feeder system for the high schools, and then a feeder system, and then the high schools are feeder systems for University of Hawaii. That's the way the kind of the football thing. But she began offering other football parents the opportunity to invest in her real estate flipping business, promising them returns of 13% to 30% per year.
Seems excessive.
But again.
She's a
Pop Warner football mom just like me. She brings the popsicles for them to eat after the games and stuff like that.
She's driving a Mercedes.
Her kid was a football prodigy.
She's clearly making money.
She's doing well.
Yeah.
$800,000. $800,000 they gave her. You know what she invested in?
Who gave her $800,000?
The other football parents.
Cumulatively.
Cumulatively.
Okay.
Like, there's like
How many?
dozen.
Okay, so roughly 80,000 a piece.
Yeah,
on
yeah. I mean,
average,
it wasn't a
60 to
massive.
80.
This is a massive case, but this is kind of what I did. I did smaller cases. And you know what she invested it in?
She said she was flipping houses.
You know what
I'm
she
sure
actually invested it in? She invested it in fuck all. She spent it all on herself, right? Paid down credit cards, bought some stuff, increased her lifestyle. Nothing substantial, nothing to seize onto, but just pissed it away. 800 grand.
Did she pay anybody back or start to?
No, it wasn't even really a successful Ponzi scheme. I don't think anybody got returns.
A successful Ponzi scheme. I'm not sure there's a
Well,
success
they all have an end point,
Yeah.
but
for a while.
yeah, I don't even know if it was technically a Ponzi scheme because a Ponzi scheme would pay some returns.
Yeah, this is just theft.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So it lands on my desk. You know, I work it up. You know, these cases all work pretty much the same. You talk to all the victims. You know, what did you think you were investing the money in? Like, oh, she said she was flipping houses. Then you look at her bank statements and like what's actually happening. She ain't
Spending money.
She ain't flipping houses. She's spending money like a drunken sailor. And so I go to her house on the west side of Oahu to interrogate her, hoping I'm going to get a confession because I'm real good at that. And I can't even get an audience with her because she has like a fenced-in perimeter around her crappy little house with like just crazy mad dogs. Just like, I'm like, there's not even a doorbell. I couldn't even ring a doorbell. I'm like standing there like on the perimeter of her house trying to out yell her dogs. Suzette, come out wherever you are. And I just want to talk to her.
Right.
And she didn't. Eventually we heard from a lawyer that he's representing her. She lawyered up. I never really got an audience with her. She pleads guilty really easily. And then to an information. Are you familiar with an information? Like, information's like you don't take it to the grand jury. It's like an indictment without a grand jury.
Okay. Well, she agrees to be charged. You
Charge
don't have to
charge me,
indict me.
plead guilty. You don't have to indict me. We can just kind of like expedite this process.
Right.
The problem that I had was that she refuses to show up to her own sentencing, and so.
That's a tactic.
Yeah. Well, what would happen is it would be time for her sentencing, and
She'd delay it.
and her attorney would say that she's really, really sick. She's really, really sick, and she's like bedridden. She's got some kind of cancer. They produce a letter from this like naturopath, goofy doctor. Not saying there's any. He was a goofy doctor independently of that, but he was also a transsexual. So the doctor was biologically a man, but became a woman. Bless his heart. Right? but there was just but he wasn't really a MD. He wasn't really a DO. He was a naturopath, and he diagnosed her with cancer, and she's like, you know, on like tea leaves and poi to like solve the cancer problem.
He said, I have a treatment. It's $800,000,
Right.
and I'll cure you.
He's boiling water and putting Vicks in it and stuff like that to cure her cancer. But we can't. This is going on forever. She's too sick to come in for sentencing. I was skeptical.
No.
I was. So I put a surveillance team on her to basically follow her around, take some pictures of her, let's see what's going on. She is leading the most robust life you can imagine for a woman who's allegedly on her deathbed. She's shopping. She's like, you know, carrying lumber. She's retarring the roof of her house. And our surveillance team is like click.
She's doing cross fitness.
Yeah, right, exactly. She's doing the Scottish games. You throw the foam pole, and so we finally went to the judge and said, Judge, we please force the sentencing to happen. And at the next night we had a status hearing, and the defense attorney, she's really sick, she can't come, and we just like lay it all out for the judge.
Yeah.
And it's like she's fine, and then the judge said, you get her ass in here,
Yeah.
and she somehow found the courage and the strength to come in. So $800,000, pleads guilty, no criminal history, but kind of ran the judge and made a monkey out of the courts. How much time you give her, Matt Cox?
Matt Cox.
What does she look like?
Yeah.
Very frail Hawaiian lady, 50 years old, 40 years old. I mean,
okay.
Nothing special.
No downward departure there.
I'm all about productivity, feeling energized, and staying strong, no matter how old I get. But let's face it, aging can slow you down. That's why I started taking Qualia Senolytic. As we get older, our bodies pick up these things called senescent cells, or zombie cells, that can make you feel stiff, tired, and achy. These cells take up space and suck nutrients from the healthy cells we need. But that's where Qualia Senolytic can help. Qualia Senolytics help remove those dead cells so the healthy ones can thrive. It's like hitting the reset button on your body. Qualia Senolytics is vegan, non-GMO, gluten-free, and the ingredients are all about working together to support your health. The best part is you only have to take it 2 days a month, and they have a 100-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to feel younger and boost your energy, go to qualialife.com/true and get up to 50% off. Use code TRUE for an extra 15% off your order. Try it risk-free with a 100-day money-back guarantee. Trust me, your future self will thank you, and thank you to Qualia for sponsoring today's episode.
Let's see. I want to say 800,000. Still, it's not a lot of time. Not a lot, and only a dozen victims. I mean, you're looking at, I think, 3 years.
Not bad. 46 months, so between 3 and 4. Yeah, you're good. You're good at this.
And honestly, you should probably got an extra 18 months for screwing around.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just for being a jerk about it.
It was clear that the judge was annoyed once he learned that he was being played. I think the
Right.
judge was filled with compassion until the surveillance pictures.
Did she get the high end of the guideline? Like, was there a range? Did she
Yeah,
get the
there was.
higher
I
end?
can't remember.
Okay.
I can't remember. It was a while ago. All right. Let's talk about the Gucci goddess.
Yeah.
57-year-old Janet Mello.
No. 57.
57, I
Nobody
know.
wants to. We have photos.
They're out there. They're
The
out there.
Gucci goddess.
The Gucci goddess, Janet Mello. She was a financial program manager for the U.S. Army at Fort Sam Houston in Texas.
This is recent. I've heard this a couple years ago, right? Is this like a year or so ago?
This is less than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Less than that. So without telling her employer, she incorporates a fake children's charity and awards herself an Army contract. The Army contract was for, and tell me if you can figure out what this even means, positive youth development through providing opportunities for military-dependent children to engage in intentional learning experiences. Approved. U.S. Army approves this children's charity that has that as their mission and description.
I feel like if she hadn't been busted already, Elon Musk would be mentioning it
Yeah.
in
No,
his next press conference.
This should be in the Doge's crosshairs. But again, she's also in a position to kind of approve these grants because she's in the department that does this.
Right.
So and it's a totally fake nonprofit. Does absolutely nothing for children, military dependents. 7-year period, she steals $108 million from you and I, the taxpayer.
Wow.
Just let that sink in. $108 million in grants, again, allegedly for military dependents to have intentional learning experiences. All of it goes into her pocket.
I would be happy with the interest from that theft.
Yeah.
Just the interest.
Not a dime of that money goes to the kids. It's all going into her bank accounts. She spends the money. 31 different homes in Colorado, Maryland, New Mexico, Texas, and Washington.
She has problems.
One of her places was an 8-bedroom house sitting on 58 acres of land and 55 garage spaces. Just let that sink in. 55 garage spaces.
So she's just an idiot.
She bought 80 motor vehicles, 4 Ducatis, 16 Harley motorcycles, and 2 Aston Martins among them. And the packages were arriving every day from high-end retailers. Coach, Louis Vuitton. The UPS guy is the one who gave her the nickname, the Gucci Goddess, because they were constantly delivering these high-end items to this McMansion that she bought. You know, one of her several McMansions. The Army eventually learns of this fraud.
Gee, how'd they put it together?
Yeah. Well, they loop in the IRS because she was not claiming any of this on her taxes. You really couldn't, right? I mean, that might raise a red flag. She pleads guilty to tax evasion and mail fraud charges. Matt Cox,
What did she get?
what do you give the Gucci Goddess?
So first, I'd like to say,
Yeah.
this is what bothers me.
Uh-huh.
She could have taken 10 million of that
Yeah.
over the course of, 7, 8 years?
7-year period.
And hired some people to make sandwiches and run a youth camp or something. She could have anything. You could have done.
Teach the kids how to dribble a basketball.
You could have done any silly little thing and spent a fraction of that money, and there ain't nothing. Well, I'm not saying there's nothing they
It's a conflict of interest, probably, but other than
Sure,
that,
but other than that, we did take the money. We did run this. We were running this camp for
Crappy
these guys.
program. Yeah.
Hundreds of kids went through it. Am I great at how we spent the money?
Yeah.
Do you agree with it? Probably not. But we have brochures, a website. Like clearly, there is an organization. Did we misappropriate some of the money? Like maybe we didn't spend it in the way you thought.
administrative costs, Matt Cox.
Yeah,
You have
but that's the way it is.
administrative costs,
Did I pay myself too much of a salary? Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not good at this.
Yeah. I mean, I need 30 homes.
Yeah, you would have some wiggle room there. This is just absolute excessive greed.
Now, you, the
Mixed with
taxpayer, got
stupidity.
some of the money back through forfeitures, right?
Yeah.
They're seizing the houses, they're seizing the cars, seizing the purses, and forfeiting those. So some of the restitution is going to get paid back because she was buying hard assets and wasn't just gambling it away.
So depending on the market, maybe they get back.
Pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
still.
I was going to say not even half, 30%. Let's say they get 30 million back.
Yeah.
She's, maybe 50. A lot of real estate, maybe 50%.
Maybe it increased in value. Maybe we made money.
Still 60, 70. You're still looking at, this is, there's only one victim though, but you get an enhancement because it's the federal government, by the way. I know that because I got that enhancement. 2 points.
Matt Cox, you're the sentencing judge. What are you going to give this girl, and what do you think she actually got?
No criminal history.
No criminal history. She's a choir girl. She's a patriot. Works for the army.
She's 15 years.
Damn, you're good.
How much?
15 years?
No.
Yes, nailed it.
Really?
Bullseye, Matt Cox. You nailed it.
I can't. I didn't even see where it was. I do see now. I see 15 here.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nice. All right.
15
I'm
years.
getting good at this.
The Gucci goddess, 15 years, 15 long years coming out with to nothing.
Oh my gosh. I remember Ron Wilson got 19 and a half years for 57 million in loss. Well, I don't know if ultimately it was 57. That's why I kind of figured, okay. But he also had like over 100 and some odd, 100, 200, 300 victims too. She didn't have the victims, so.
My favorite kind of cases to investigate are embezzlements. I love it when an employee steals money from their employer and I get assigned that case. As a private investigator now and as an FBI agent there, I would just be so tickled by watching the way that people would steal from their employers. I love those cases.
Right.
Okay. So, in fact, next time I come, I'd like to do an embezzlement episode where it's all just the various types of schemes that people do to rip off their employers.
Nice. By the way, hers wasn't bad. Starting the other company, she was on the right. That wasn't bad.
Right. So I want to know what you think about this next one.
Okay.
This is my next embezzler. 65-year-old Patty Mavrakis, Pennsylvania. She's a branch manager at a credit union. She's on a long weekend, 3-day weekend. She goes into the vault, steals $400,000 cash that's in the vault. Good amount of cash in this credit union.
You don't have to sell me on her.
And long holiday weekend. The next day, let's say that happens Friday after work. Next day, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday, I don't know which day it was, but 3-day weekend. She goes back into the credit union and she stages a fire in the vault where the cash was, making it look like a loose alarm wire started the blaze, and claims that the missing cash burned up in the fire. Just burned up. Not here anymore. See those ashes? That's where the cash was. Okay.
Imaginative,
right? Fire marshal, local fire guy, goes to talk to her. He's not getting a good feeling for Patty. He's just not getting a good feel for her. Something's hinked up. So the fire marshal calls the FBI and says, you may want to look into this. Right. And so the FBI has the case, and these cases take time, right? There's fire stuff going on, there's physical stuff. Patty's sticking to her story, burned down. But then they take a look at someone decides to check out the records, one of the agents at the casino down the road.
Okay.
And they find out in the weeks following the fire, Patty has lost $400,000 gambling at that casino. She's not a very good gambler, Matt Cox. And what they're not seeing is Patty withdrawing any money from any accounts that they know about where she's taking out $400,000. Encyclopedia Brown. Tell me, where did
Yeah.
that money come from?
I feel like Patty has something to do with stealing $400,000 in cash.
This is like a forensic accountant's wet dream,
Yeah.
right? There's $400,000 mysteriously missing in a mysterious kind of like fishy fire. Then you got the lady spending $400,000 with no other source of income, losing $400,000 gambling.
It's a strong circumstantial case is how I think they.
It is. And so they bring charges against Patty. She pleads guilty. Matt Cox, how much time are you giving Patty?
She's gonna get like a year, right? Wait. She did start a fire.
She did. I mean, it didn't burn the place to the ground. Caused some damage, though.
They don't like fires. I'll tell you right now. I've never met every arsonist I ever met got a ton of time.
They frown on that.
Yeah, but she like once again she's a woman,
65 years old.
65. You don't want. I don't
Probably a
want her
grandma.
Don't want her to die in prison.
Yeah.
Probably walked in with an oxygen tank.
A walker.
Yeah, walker and oxygen tank.
Blue hair.
I didn't know what I was doing. 4 years.
30 months. A little less than 3 years.
Okay, I don't feel bad about that. That seems reasonable.
And
it seems reasonable.
when she gets out, she'll owe restitution.
Yeah.
They'll garnish her nickels and dimes. And
Social Security check.
yeah, whatever.
Can they garner Social Security check? I don't think so.
I don't know.
Probably not.
Once the sentencing happened, I was always just sort of done with it. I wasn't involved in the collection of restitution except for the forfeitures that you could do.
Yeah, she's so old, bro.
Yeah.
She's old.
Yeah. All right. So let's switch to city council.
City council.
City council in Las Vegas. 54-year-old Michelle Fiore. She served in the Nevada State Legislature and the Las Vegas City Council. She lost an election to become the governor of Nevada. She lost another election to be treasurer of Nevada, but she's kind of a staple in Nevada when it comes to local politics there.
Say losing elections.
Yeah. So there was a tragedy in Nevada, and I don't know a ton of the background on this. There were 2 Vegas police officers killed in the line of duty. Their names were Alan Beck and Igor Soldo. And so Michelle, because she's a very civic-minded lady, incorporates a charity to raise money for a memorial statue for Alan and Igor, who were killed in the line of duty. And she does kind of, I don't know if it was officially a GoFundMe, but she took in $70,000 from donors.
Should make the statue out of paper mache. Spend the rest of it.
Build the statue. You'll be surprised to learn that instead of actually building the memorial, Michelle stole all the money for herself. She used it on plastic surgery to make her face prettier than it was, and to pay for her daughter's wedding.
Reasonable.
Totally reasonable.
Reasonable.
Although I think she should have saved the receipt for the plastic surgery. I saw the before and the after. No bueno.
Well, yeah, you would think that you would. I mean, how much is a statue anyway?
There's a problem with her crime.
What?
People start noticing that no statue. Where's the statue, Patty? Michelle. And so FBI opens an investigation, and her reckless spending is uncovered by the FBI agents and forensic accountants working the case. Federal grand jury indicts her on fraud charges. Michelle wisely pleads guilty, elects to not go to trial. Oh, no, I take it back. No, she did not. Now that I'm thinking about it, she went to trial. She took it to trial.
That's hard to go to trial when there's no statue.
Yeah, and you see the spend and the forensic
70,000, no statue.
70,000, no statue, right? No statue, and the financial record showing exactly where that 70,000 went, right? Government's case, as you pointed out, was airtight.
Right.
The jury goes out. They didn't even stick around for their free lunch. They come back guilty on all the charges. She's asking for a new trial right now, even after she was found guilty. She's awaiting sentencing, and she's claiming ineffective assistance of counsel. Like, my attorney did a really bad job at the trial.
Okay, so we don't know what she got.
Hasn't gotten it yet. What are you going to give her, though? Problem is $70,000 doesn't really move the needle too much in the sentencing guidelines.
Right. Here's my problem: is the enhancements are it's a charitable institution. You created kind of a charitable institution. I mean, people are giving because it's charitable.
Right.
It depends on how many victims.
Let's say there's a couple dozen.
24?
Whatever. I don't have that number, but yeah.
I mean, it might be over 50. People are giving $100. I mean, that's 70,000. Like, unless people are giving 10 grand a piece, if everybody's giving 200, that's way over 100 victims.
Yeah. Her daughter was called upon to testify. I believe she pled the fifth.
Okay. It's sophisticated means. There's a, I would say she's looking at 3, and she went to trial.
She did.
So
she doesn't get acceptance of responsibility,
Right.
which is a discount on your sentence.
Yeah, that's
in the federal guidelines.
And she also doesn't get where you plead guilty quickly. I forget what they call it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Basically, you're not putting the government through the cost of like litigating this thing and dragging it out.
So that's 3. That's 3 levels off that you
Had
typically
she pled guilty, I suspect she wouldn't have seen a day in prison.
No. I would think she would have gotten probably 3 years paper.
Yeah, but she got cute.
Yeah. So I'm thinking she's getting 3 to 4 years in federal prison.
Oh, you think that high?
She went to trial.
Yeah,
You're an asshole.
I mean, I don't know.
You know what I'm saying? Like you get a certain amount of time just for being an asshole. You could have pled guilty and gotten probation.
If I'm a betting man, I think she's looking at 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
We'll know in a year and a half.
Yeah, yeah,
Or in 18 months.
yeah, exactly. Let's go to Mississippi, Matt Cox. Nonprofit organization in Mississippi.
Enhancement off the bat. You got an enhancement. Sorry, go ahead.
That's assuming she's guilty.
She's guilty. I feel like she's guilty.
They make this nonprofit makes a $54,000 donation, a grant to the city of Jackson, Mississippi, to allow the city to invest in artists of color.
Okay.
Now, you're an artist, Matt.
I mean, okay, so the charity
Some
gives
foundation,
the city.
right? Gives the city $54,000.
Okay.
Make me a black mural, that type of thing,
Okay.
right? So you got 54-year-old Keisha Sanders. You could Google her picture. She was the constituent service manager for the city of Jackson. And it was her job to disperse that $54,000 grant money to worthy black artists who were going to make the city of Jackson, Mississippi so goddamn beautiful your eyes would spin around.
Okay. So you go get some graffiti guys, you give them checks for $7,000 a piece, a bunch of them, have them give you a kickback for 50% of it.
If only, Matt
It's a good
Cox,
scam.
If only she had thought that through. Instead of seeking out the most promising artists of color in her town, Keisha began submitting false invoices to the city's fiscal manager. She begins filing false invoices to the city, causing the disbursement of the $54,000 to her and into her own bank account. And
Bad idea, Keisha.
it gets worse because Keisha's no artist.
No, well, my better idea is doing exactly what I said.
Yeah. Her embezzlement was caught by government auditors who noticed that there was no black mural in the town. And they call on the FBI to investigate. Keisha was charged with federal wire fraud, pled guilty. The federal sentencing guidelines are driven by criminal history, and I don't think she had one, and the dollar amount of the loss.
Yeah, if she pled guilty, she's not going to jail for that.
What do you think? What do you think she
I think she's getting 24 months probation, and she has to pay the restitution,
Yeah,
which she'll probably barely ever even come close to paying.
yeah. 5 years probation.
Probation. Oh, okay.
5 years probation, and order to pay restitution for the $54,000. Worst of all, she lost her sweet government job.
Yeah.
I mean, that means the world to a lot of folks.
What I don't get is like, well, why couldn't you have just gone? It would have literally, for me to take, it would have taken me 20 minutes in phone calls and a couple of meetings with with 3 guys to figure out how, one, we're going to do the mural.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to get graffiti guys who are doing free work anyway. We're going to give them, here's these 2 buildings. These guys have donated their side of their buildings. You can paint there.
Yeah.
You guys can do a spray paint thing. Just let me take a look at it. It can't be anything vulgar or anything. And submit that to me. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to give you money. I'm going to go buy the paints and everything, do whatever. I'll give you money and you're going to cash the checks and give me back money. And they'd be like, absolutely. You're telling me I have to help you launder. You're going to give me $4,000 worth of paint with a spray paint. And you're going to give each one of us $25,000. We're going to cash the checks and give you back $20,000. You're going to make $26,000 yourself. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Where were you when Keisha needed you?
I mean, I don't,
I think the real crime here is that the people of Jackson were ripped off in the sense that they don't get a beautiful mural to look at.
Oh yeah, there's then that too.
Yeah.
That upset me too. But I don't even say that because that's just, off the rip.
I get it.
feel bad about that. I don't even like talking about it.
I get it.
All
right. So let's go to Lily White, Little Falls, Minnesota, in a baby store called Babies on Broadway, owned and operated by 40-year-old Adele Starin. The store was awarded the Women-Owned Business, Small Business of the Year award by some local business publication, right?
Nice.
No one still understood at the time, though, that the store was basically a fraud, and Adele was
Prostitution ring?
a very prolific scammer. Nothing that sketchy. It's a financial crime.
Okay.
Put yourself in put your fraud shoes on.
All right.
So the store's a total failure. It's not making any money. No one wanted to buy Adele's shit, and she's drowning in debt. So Adele establishes a relationship with a Canadian lender, a money lender called Liquid Capital, to fund inventory purchases, right? I'm going to, buy a bunch of ear thermometers for babies. Give me the money for the inventory, and Liquid Capital would wire her the money to buy that inventory, and then she would, in the perfect world, buy that inventory, sell it at a profit, and then pay back the inventory financing company. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I feel like she didn't do that though.
Right. So what she did was she established a company, a fake company that did nothing, called Sunshine Medical. And Liquid Capital so she was invoicing Liquid Capital for alleged purchases from Sunshine Medical, and Liquid Capital was then funding that. That makes sense.
Nice. That's the way to do it.
Right, but there's no actual real inventory being provided. It's a false.
But at least she can show them where she purchased it from this company, so they can see the invoice. They can see the wire. Look, I've already given them 14,000 or 10,000 or 5, and didn't go to me and went to this company, and this is a manufacturer, and they send me the stuff, and then so to them it looks legit. So that's why they fund it.
Well, what's the problem with the scam?
Well, you don't. It's a Ponzi scheme. Ultimately, you can't pay them back. You have to keep borrowing money from additional.
Bingo. Right. It's not a Ponzi scheme, though. It's what we used to call at the FBI a loan lapping scheme.
Oh, you have to keep borrowing more and more and more.
Right.
Amount.
So the next set of invoices to Liquid Capital is using to pay off the previous set of invoices for inventory that doesn't exist, and the new inventory doesn't exist. And exactly. And meanwhile, she's lining her pockets.
At some point, it collapses, though.
Yeah. Over a 2-year period, Adele receives $9 million from Liquid Capital.
Well, she was good at this.
Yeah. And a second lender also with the same scheme. And she's basically it's a loan lapping scheme like we talked about. It's akin to a Ponzi scheme, as you pointed out. And she's basically using the money, though, to keep her stupid baby store afloat. And
so she's not like making any real money?
She's feathering her own nest a bit, paying herself a generous salary for this dumb store, skimming money. At the end, so there's $9 million that takes in, but again, some of the money's going to pay them back, the lenders, right? Because that's how a Ponzi scheme or a loan lapping scheme works.
Right.
The shortfall, once it all collapses, is $2.3 million. That's the amount of money she enjoyed from this scam.
Okay.
That's the loss that the lenders had. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So $9 million goes out the door. She basically gives $6.7 million of it back, creating the illusion that she's paying back the loans, but she's just paying them back with her own money. The net loss to the Canadian lender, $2.3 million, which is how much she enjoyed keeping her store afloat and feathering her nest.
Okay.
Okay.
Not a horrible person.
Pleads guilty. Awaiting sentencing now, but I ran the guidelines. What are you going to give her?
I don't feel like the other guys, the other people are victims. So I feel like she's got one victim, right?
I'd say that's right. Yeah. The lender. I mean, there's 2 lenders, but the same.
So 2 lenders. Okay.
Yeah,
So whatever. 2
both
people.
in the same. Yeah.
Under 5.
Right.
2. It's definitely sophisticated.
2-year period, and she was able to pull this off.
I'd say 3 under 4 years, about 4 years.
Yeah, I ran the guidelines. I got 4 years.
Oh, okay.
I got 48 months exactly. I mean, the judge may decide to go above or below that. It hasn't been sentenced.
Yeah, it depends on how she behaves. From once she's caught, how she behaves, and she has the argument of she's probably making enough money to pay her bills and keep the store afloat. Mm-hmm. And it's like, look, I didn't do this because I'm a greedy person. I wanted to keep my store afloat in the hopes that someday it would become profitable. And this is what I love to do.
Right.
And not the fraud part, but selling. I love
and that's
babies.
the difference in my mind between a loan lapping scheme. A loan lapping scheme is much easier to lie to yourself that hey, as soon as these strollers start flying off the shelves, everything's going to be right because I got a high margin on that. A Ponzi scheme, on the other hand, I don't know how, again, and I've arrested dozens of Ponzi schemers. None of them can really describe to me what the end game was.
Yeah. Yeah, for her, the end game is just I need it once it's profitable.
Right.
It's
The
all
store is just
going
going to take off, and the people of this tiny town in Minnesota are really going to dig her baby store.
Yeah, she's not like that. That's not a horrible person. That's somebody who gets himself into a situation. That's not greed. That's not done out of greed. That's done out of,
You think so?
yeah, I don't think that shit makes her a horrible. And she's not. It's not like she's convincing people to give them or give her their life savings or investment.
So you see a moral difference between an institutional victim and human victims.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I think there should be two separate guidelines for that. I don't think that you should consider Bank of America the same as Betty Johnson. You steal $1 million from Bank of America. Nobody loses an ounce of sleep.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. Whether you're having trouble falling asleep, you're waking up sweating in the middle of the night, or all of the above. That's where GhostBed can help. As the makers of the coolest beds in the world, GhostBed is your go-to for cooling mattresses, cooling pillows, and cooling bedding. From their signature Ghost Ice fabric to patented technology that adjusts to your body's temperature, every Ghost Bed mattress is designed with cooling in mind. So whether you want a plusher mattress that cushions your shoulders and hips, or a firm option with exceptional support, your Ghost Bed will keep you cool and comfortable all night long. When you purchase a Ghost Bed mattress, your comfort is guaranteed. You can try out your mattress for 101 nights, risk-free, to make sure it's the right fit for you. Plus, they offer free shipping, and most items are shipped within 24 hours. If you're not sure which Ghost Bed is right for you, check out their mattress quiz. You'll answer a few questions and get a personalized recommendation. Even better, our listeners can get 50% off site-wide for a limited time. Just visit ghostbed.com/Cox and use the code COX at checkout. Again, that's ghostbed.com/Cox with the code COX at the checkout to save a whopping 50% off site-wide.
And there is, and it doesn't move the needle. It's all those people. Oh, you stole from all those people that have savings accounts. Stop it! It doesn't even move the needle. Stop. And then Betty Johnson, you steal $1 million of her life savings. This is the difference between now she's living in her daughter's spare room if she's lucky.
Yeah.
And she's living off of Social Security. You've just wiped out an entire lifetime of savings for retirement, as opposed to nobody bats an eye at Bank of America. So I think considering them, like I had over 50 victims, but you have to think 51 of them are banks.
Yeah.
Like there's like 3 people, or no, 4. I think there's 3 or 4 people that are actual individuals. But even then you say, oh, you stole from an individual. No, I didn't. What happened was you rented your house to me. I then satisfied the loan on your house. I borrowed money in your name, not even using your name, really. Just I had an ID. I didn't even have your social security.
So you didn't cost them money. You just screwed their credit.
Right. I screwed, well, not even their credit, because it didn't. What it screwed up was the title to their home. So then you start getting foreclosed on by a couple different banks.
Yeah.
You go to a lawyer and the lawyer says, look, I know what the guy did. He borrowed 3 mortgages on your house. I've already talked to the FBI or the Secret Service, whoever it was. I can go to the court and get the foreclosures held off. I can fix this. Give me 10 grand. I'll do it. And you give them 10 grand. So I didn't steal from you directly. You spent 10 grand on a lawyer to fix what I did.
Yeah.
Doesn't make me a decent person, but the difference is I didn't go to you and say, look, give me 10 grand. I'm going to invest it. I'm going to give you back the money. You know what I'm saying? Like I never had that.
No, I mean, I spent the first near decade of my career investigating bank fraud. So all of my victims were institutional victims. And I enjoyed those cases. The victims weren't like in a fetal position crying. The bankers didn't really care.
Right.
It was not their money. And then like the last decade of my career was mostly Ponzi schemes where it's actually little old ladies getting ripped off.
Yeah.
And I liked those cases so much better, right? Because I felt like I was kind of trying to be a champion for these like crime victims who were stupid and greedy at times and all that, but they appreciated it. They appreciated the fact that there was someone out there advocating for them in court, trying to solve this crime and put this bad guy away. The banks didn't really give a shit.
Yeah. I was gonna say the other thing is too, you get to definitely know like to me, this woman's like, you got yourself over your head and you made some stupid mistakes, but you're just stupid. You're not a master criminal. You're not a horrible person. Yeah. But if that same woman was running a Ponzi scheme and she had 300 victims and you knew that half those victims had given her their 401k or IRAs.
Yeah, like the Pop Warner football lady.
Right. And then you're going, okay, you're a horrible human being. Like, I want you to go to prison for 10 or 15 years. You deserve to go. But the other person, you're like, probation.
That's interesting, though, that you distinguish between that. Because what I learned early on as an agent, and I was also training agents, a lot of young agents over the course of my career, I would tell them, don't get yourself emotionally wrapped around the axle about the sentencing. Right. You go to the sentence, you make sure that the probation department, the judge and the defense attorney and you're the prosecutor all understand the case, understand what the losses are. So you're all in agreement about what it is. But does it really matter to you if this person gets 36 months or 42 months in that guidelines range? And I go, don't get yourself emotionally wrapped around. You don't get to keep the license plates they make in prison. They're not. These people aren't going to be your pen pals, and so see the case through. But once what your job is, what you should really focus on is getting that guilty plea. That guilty plea is an affirmation that your investigation was so lock solid that they're not even going to go to trial to test the quality of your work. And I was always really proud of myself that I had very, very few trials because I could put these cases together so lock solid, oftentimes getting a confession from the bad guy, whether it was a bank fraud case or a Ponzi scheme, that the cases wouldn't even bother going to trial. And to me, that was where my victory was. It didn't really matter to me how much time they did.
Well, I think as a law enforcement, versus prosecution, I don't think it's really, it shouldn't be the person investigating the case concerned with how much time. Like, to me, it's like, Mike, your concern should be putting together a solid case that can be prosecuted.
But I think a lot of people in law enforcement kind of came from the world of athletics. They were like high school or college athletes, and they see the sentencing as points on the board, and you got to get away from that. You got to get away from that.
Well, I don't think you'll ever be. I don't think that would make you happy anyway. In general, I don't think that's a fair assessment, because I can imagine that going to trial, sometimes somebody gets 10 years and you go, just like with juries, a lot of time these juries, they listen to the whole thing. They say, yeah, he's guilty. And he's guilty. And then when the guy gets sentenced 4 months later, they read the newspaper and they go, he got 12 years.
Yeah.
And they're devastated. They're like, I can't believe he got 12 years. I mean, I said he was guilty, but I thought they'd give him a year or two.
Because during the trial, you were not allowed to discuss what the sentencing might be or what the ramifications are. The jury is only allowed to know about innocent or guilty. They're not allowed to even consider what would happen to this person, unless it's a death penalty case.
I was going to say, unless it's death penalty.
Yeah, in which case the jury needs to weigh in on that. The jury has no input whatsoever as to what the sentencing will be. In fact, half the juries I've been in, they didn't even understand if it was a criminal case or a civil case. I mean, you should be frightened about juries.
Did I tell you that I got a jury summons? Did I tell you that?
No, what happened?
And did I tell you this?
I've never been summoned. What happened to you?
This was, I don't know if it was a year ago, probably maybe a year ago. I was still on probation. I want to say I definitely think I was still on probation. So I called them. I wanted to go.
Yeah.
I thought this would be great.
Registered voter?
This will be great.
Yeah.
I'm not a registered voter.
Well, you have to be. Is that where
well,
they're getting?
I mean, maybe from 30 years ago in Florida, maybe.
I thought that's how they got the voter.
That's what I thought too. I'm thinking maybe my registration.
Oh, car, like motor voter type thing?
Right, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. But it showed up. It was a jury summons, and I thought, I'm going to go, voir dire, right? Like they're going to look through the whole thing. They're going to talk to everybody. I thought this will be great, even if I don't make the jury, because if they do end up saying, but then I thought, do I go down there only to be told, yeah, you can't, you're a convicted felon, you get. I thought, you know what, I'm going to call just to find out. So I called. It's a funny thing too. You call like that number,
the clerk.
Somebody answers the phone. I talked to somebody, and I'm like, "Hey, got a jury summons." They're like, "Oh, okay. What does it say?" And I said, "Oh, supposed to show up this time." They were like, "Yeah, okay. So be here at such." I was like, "Yeah, no. But I understand that." And I said, "And I want to serve. By the way, I want to come, but I also want you to know that I'm a convicted felon, and I didn't know if that excludes me." She goes, "Yeah, you don't have to come."
Right off the bat, the clerk just forgave it.
Right,
she knew that you weren't going to get it.
And I told her too. I said, well, listen, if I can serve, like I will come down. I want to serve.
Yeah.
And she's no. She said, there's no reason for you to come down. It's going to exclude you.
Yeah.
She says, don't even show up. I said, well, do I do anything? She said, no, you don't need to do anything.
I went to Clemson University in South Carolina, but my family lived in Washington, D.C., and I was a registered voter down in Clemson. And so summer of 1991, I was an intern for the FBI at FBI headquarters. And I used to forward the mail from my P.O. box at Clemson to my parents' house in D.C., and I get a jury duty notification for South Carolina, but the mail system, because it was being forwarded from South Carolina to my parents' place, I get it like I was supposed to be at jury duty 2 weeks earlier.
Oh, okay.
I'm 21 years old. I've never been in trouble in my life. I'm an FBI intern.
What'd you think? Oh my gosh!
I thought there was going to be more. I thought I was terrified. I didn't know what was going to happen if you just don't show up at all to jury duty. And so I brought it to my supervisor. Well, he wasn't my supervisor directly, but he was the guy who ran the internship. His name was Jimmy Carter. And supervisory special agent Jimmy Carter. And I take it to him, and I'm like, I close the door to his office. I explain the situation. I give it to him. He goes, let me see that. He takes a look at it, picks up the phone, calls the clerk down in Clemson. He's like, this is Jimmy Carter, special agent from the FBI. One of my interns received blah, 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 blah. And they're like, okay, you'll take care of it. He hangs up and goes, taken care of. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be an FBI agent.
He probably just shrugged it off anyway.
He was probably fine. Wasn't even calling. He was on a deadline. But one other thing about sentencing that comes to mind, just since we're on that topic, is that somewhere along the line, I don't know what year this happened, but I think it was after 95, Congress passed a law allowing the victims of crimes to speak at the sentencings and provide a victim impact statement. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, I mean, and I think they're probably thinking like kidnappers and stuff like that, where, a victim could get up there and at the sentencing explain to the judge how this impacted their lives, and the judge can consider that in their sentencing decisions.
Yeah.
And so for the first half of my career,
I know it well.
Yeah. The banks were very uninterested in coming to court and providing a victim impact statement. And when they did come, it was never I think it was just water off a duck's back. The judge didn't really care if like First National Bank of Chicago got ripped off in a $50,000 embezzlement that I was investigating. But on the Ponzi scheme side, again, I wasn't hung up on seeing the person get a large sentence, but I was very hung up on making sure that the judge was fully informed of the facts of this case. And so I would egg on and cajole the victims. You come into court this day, and you can either write it out and make sure that it gets to the judge, or if you're willing to get up there and speak on in the microphone and provide that statement about how this impacted your life, the judge deserves to know that while he's making a decision about the defendant. So I would cajole and get these people into court, and I had a good track record as far as getting the victims to get up there and cry to the judge about how this ruined them, and I think it probably impacted the sentencings.
I had two people show up at mine.
Really? Uh-huh. Like identity theft type victims or bankers?
One was a banker.
Really?
Well, he was a hard money guy.
Okay.
So
it was like his money.
Yes. Yeah. The one guy showed up and he said he was a CPA that we had rented his house. I didn't actually rent his house. Like, so when I tell the story, sometimes I'll say, well, I went here, boom, and I rented a house from this guy, but I actually didn't rent the house. It's one of those things you shave off to shorten the, shorten the, you know what I'm saying?
Expedites the story.
Yeah. Cause the whole story is 6.5 hours long as opposed to, do you want the 2 hour version? The 2 hour version is, so I go there and I rent this guy's house. But the truth is I went there and the girl I was dating rented the house. Mm-hmm. The point is that I moved in the house. I assume this guy's name, right? Like I get a social security number issued to him for a child with his name. I then get a couple credit cards. I go downtown. I satisfy all the loans on his house. And then I borrow 3 mortgages worth about $150,000 a piece, so it's around $400,000. And then I put that money in the bank, pull the money out, and leave. So this was a rental property for him. He owned a CPA firm. He had like a dozen guys working for him.
Did he go on camera for the American Greed episode?
No, that's the hard money lender.
Okay.
So this is the owner.
Got it.
So the owner of that house goes to Atlanta to my sentencing, and he says, now keep in mind, I rented the house. We bought a $20 or $15 or $20, the metal bar thing on your bed, the frame on the bed. Yeah, So we bought like a $20 one. I put that in his bedroom. Bought 2 nightstands and a mattress and box springs. That's all the furniture I have.
Okay.
Only in that house, never walked into a one of the spare rooms. And the house was basically just like this, right?
Yeah,
it's like a 4-bedroom,
Good
3
house.
bath, right? 2 bath, two car garage. Never really walked around.
But you're just using it to flop in this one room.
That's it.
Yeah.
I do have a fax machine. Some people will remember that's how old this is. I had a fax machine in the kitchen plugged in. And that's all we had. So we lived there while we satisfied, because it took time in Fulton County, when you satisfy a loan or you record something, it took months for it to show up. That's how far behind their public records was. Mm-hmm. So we had to wait around for months for his loans to get satisfied. That's also why I assumed his name instead of changing the warranty deed into somebody else's name, right?
Okay, right.
So because I didn't have another 2 months to do that. Like you would file that, and then a few days later or months later, you would file the satisfaction. Like I didn't have time for all that. So I just did the satisfy the mortgages on his house, and we're just sleeping there waiting. So we're doing mountain climbing, working out, jogging, going on vacations. Like we're just waiting around for these things to show up. So then I borrow the money, pull the money out, leave.
Yeah.
When it comes time for sentencing, he shows up at sentencing, and the prosecutor's questioning him, and he ends up saying he spent $6,000 or $8,000 on attorneys. Mm-hmm. Keep in mind, while I was there, I made a paper mache statue of a guy about my size, whatever, and he's like screaming. Now, there was a movie called Night Watch or something where the guy makes a paper mache statue, and it's reminiscent of Edvard Munch's The Scream. Mm-hmm. Mine was more realistic. So I make this statue. And I never really finished it, right? Like by the time the scam's going, like I'm at the end of it, but I figure I'll finish it at the next place, right?
Yeah.
So when we're packing up all our stuff, we go to put this into the vehicle that we have, and there's not enough room.
Yeah.
And we removed the back seat. We're trying desperately to get this in. I've spent hours. I've spent 100 hours making this thing.
You're an artist.
So we end up leaving the back seat of this little vehicle we have. We leave the paper mache statue. We take the bedding and everything. We take the bed apart. Mm-hmm. We put everything in the 2-car garage.
Okay.
All of the files for the 3 mortgages that I borrowed, I leave in the kitchen right next to the fax machine. So the carpet, we had the carpets cleaned. Even though it was just in the one room, right?
You're the best squatter in the world, yeah.
Right. Like we made all the payments.
Probably consider it, yeah.
Right, we were only there like 3 months. But when the guy comes to sentencing, he says, I didn't receive my payment, went by the house, checked the mail, saw a ton of mail for me in his name. Yeah. He said, so I open it. He said, lenders and things I don't know anything about. He said, and there were payments for mortgages that I didn't take out. He said, I go to the front door, I open it, walk inside. He said, and now it would have been empty. Mm-hmm. He says, the place is completely destroyed.
Really? He lied.
And he said, and in the middle of the living room was a paper mache statue of, he said, what he felt was him screaming, and that there were
like you were mocking him.
Yes, yeah. I was all about mocking. And then all the loan documents were spread around the floor
to torment him.
Exactly. And the place was completely trashed. And I'm sitting there like it's bad enough what's about to happen. I don't need you making it worse.
Throwing gasoline
bro.
On this fire.
Like, I'm not sure what you're thinking here, that you're thinking they're about to give me 3 years. Yeah. You're trying to get me 3.5, because that's not what's about to happen. And I was just like, that's not what, I'm trying to talk to my lawyer. She's like, quiet, don't say anything. And I'm like, and every time I look at the judge, he's staring at me, Anyway, so this guy leaves. The next guy that comes up is one of the hard money lenders. He gets up, and the prosecutor says, her name was Gail McKenzie. She's like, Mr. Cox did this and this. You can see he ruined that man's life, ruined his life. Like, he paid $6,000 to an attorney that fixed the issue, But whatever, that's fine. Doesn't make me a good person. I'm still a scumbag. Point is the next guy gets up and says, I'm a hard money lender. No, she says, you're a hard money lender. She didn't say card, but she said, you're a private lender. And he's like, yes, I am. She's like, you're lending your own money. He's like, yes, my money and friends and family's money. And she's like, and you lent $150,000 to Mr. Cox, didn't you? And he's like, yes, I did. And she's like, and you couldn't afford to lose that money, could you? And he's like, no, I couldn't. I couldn't. You could tell he's like, no, I couldn't. Yeah. She's like, that was a lot of money. And you didn't get any of that money back, did you? And he went, keep in mind, the other two lenders didn't show up because they've been paid back.
Right.
But it has been months since she's talked to him. Mm-hmm. And he goes, and they start whispering, and they're right here. You know how they're right next to you. Yeah. So I hear him say, I actually did get paid back. And she's like, how much did you get paid back? He's like, everything. She's like, everything?
Why'd you come? Why'd you pay for parking today at the courthouse?
And he's like, yeah. And she's like, well, so what's on the transcript, they're whispering, you can't tell. But then she's like, well, how much? Well, did you have to hire anybody? He's like, no. She's like, did you hire an attorney? And he goes, oh, I did hire an attorney. She's like, well, how much money was the attorney? He goes, it's a friend of mine. He goes, it's like $1,500. She goes, well, $1,500 is a lot of money.
Jeez, he's trying to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat here.
And you couldn't afford to lose that money, could you? He's like, no. It was a lot of money. Yeah, I couldn't afford to lose that. And the judge had to be going, the fuck are we doing? And so she's like, yeah, so that's a lot of money. And this was very upsetting to you. He said, no, it was very upsetting, very upsetting. That's one of the guys that they talked to on the program.
Right.
And it was very upset, very upset. And so that was it. That was his whole thing. That was his whole, where she really wanted him to have lost the 150.
We had a judge in Chicago that would always, on my cases, give the low end of the guidelines. I mean, they were like bank tellers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I wasn't hung up on that. But if I but later, when I started investigating crimes where humans were the victims, it would still be low end of the guidelines. But if I brought a victim in for a victim impact statement, she would add 3 months to it. So if they were going to get 48 months at the low end of the guidelines, she'd give them 51 months instead. Right. It was clear that she was like just a tip of the hat to the victim who bothered to come and testify at the sentencing.
You will say, I was going to do this, but because the victim was so compelling.
Yeah. Well, again, they never explain it, right? Because they don't want to be appealed.
Yeah. But it was just, it was so funny because like that guy, the 150 on my restitution, it's 150. He's on there for 150. So I have no doubt he's still getting a $62 a month payment every quarter of whatever he's getting.
Are they still garnishing your income?
No, because I'm off probation. Right. So I have to make an arrangement with the federal whatever. And my probation officer said they were going to contact me, to make an arrangement. And, and like I said, I'll make that arrangement. Once they contact me, which they never have, I actually talked to my buddy Pete, and I was thinking about, and he was like, you got to write the judge. Because I'm actually want to write the judge a letter to say, just that, look, like, I know you know what my case is. Yeah. One reason I know he knows my case is because my probation officer, when I first got arrested, sent in the paperwork to have my case transferred from the Northern District of Georgia to the Middle District of Florida.
Right.
She said I sent it off 3 times. They never responded. So finally she called the clerk and said, listen, I have so-and-so. I have a parolee. His name is Matthew Cox. And she's like, I know who Mr. Cox is. And she's like, okay, well, I've sent in paperwork. She's like, yeah. She said, the judge isn't going to transfer it. And he has a personal interest in seeing the case through. Huh. He wants to keep an eye on Mr. Cox. So he's not going to transfer it.
You're trying to do a Rule 20 where the case itself got moved, or the probation.
So typically, if you're prosecuted, let's say in Northern District, you typically are from the Northern District, and you end up going on supervised release in the Northern District.
Right.
But if you go to another district, which I did, I went to the Northern. I'm from Florida.
Right.
So the reason I just steal in Georgia. In Georgia. Yeah. So they had to transfer it down here for my supervision, but they're supposed to transfer the case. So you have a local judge.
So your federal probation officer was in Atlanta?
No, my federal probation officer is in Florida. Uh-huh. She contacted the judge. I was prosecuted out of Georgia to get the case moved, so they give a local judge.
Does the judge have much involvement with the?
No, but it's just what they do.
Out on supervised release.
It's just what they do in case you end up getting
they need to
violated. They can send you to a local jail. Yeah. You get a local judge, and it's already set up.
Yeah,
right. So but he wouldn't do it. And
He's a real fan.
he's a fan, yeah. So so I wanted to write him a letter because I know he knows who I also know from my previous public defender. He called her in the office one time and talked to her about me, like, hey, what's going on with this guy's case? I gave this guy, he even told her, he said, I gave a white collar criminal 26 years.
Yeah, that sticks in his mind.
Yeah, he's like, I wonder what's happening with this. Like, I didn't think he was going to get stuck with 26 years.
Yeah.
Which in and of itself is wrong. He shouldn't have taken that into consideration, but he did, and they're human. So I wanted to write him a letter and say, Your Honor, got out of prison. Here's what I'm doing. I'm all, everything's good. Whether you want to know or not, I want to let you know that, thank you for giving me, listen, twice. We filed 2 2255s. Do you know how many 2255s result in relief for an inmate? Out of every 3,500 that are filed, 1 actually results in the relief of an inmate.
And that's a motion for reduction in sentence?
Right. Well, 2255 is where you're basically saying your lawyer was ineffective.
Okay.
But your goal is obvious to get your sentence reduced. I filed 2 and got my sentence reduced.
Really? And
the government fought both of them.
Yeah, sure.
So, and that was as a result of the judge letting the government know, listen,
over sentence this thing.
we need to fix this. Like this is the avenue. Mm-hmm. And he even told Millie, my public defender, when he called her in, he's like, what's he doing to get his sentence reduced? And she's like, what can he do? He goes, I can't tell you what he can do.
Yeah.
He said, I can tell you he needs to get himself back in front of me.
So the judge did you a solid on the back end.
He did on both ends. Now, when he gave me the 7 years off on the first one, could he have given me more? Yeah, he could have given me more. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, the way he looked at it, like, honestly, what did you fucking do, bro? You were interviewed by a couple of people. Yeah. There's no arrest. And he said all this. There's no arrest on your case. And I'm giving you, for getting a reduction for no arrests, he said 7 years is pretty good. Yeah. And he's right. Mm-hmm. I was upset at the time, but he was right.
Right.
And then I come back, I get another 5 years locked off. Like, he did me some solid. So I just want to let him, and I know that he paid attention. No, this was like 2 weeks ago. I was not only going to write him, but I was going to write him. I was also, and I wanted to bounce this off of a buddy of mine to say, look, I was told I was going to be contacted by this. I want to pay.
Yeah,
I'm willing to pay. I'm more than happy to pay. But nobody's contacted me, and I don't really know who to contact. And when I asked my probation officer about it, she said, because I asked her about it, and she said, "Don't worry, they'll be in contact with you. Like, relax, wait for the. You've got several months where you don't have to make a payment. They're going to be in contact with you." But I also know I've talked to other people that have been on sentence, and they've said that some of them have never been contacted, and some they waited a year. Like, I don't want to wait a year. I mean, I want to make the payment. Look, I don't want to die. I don't want to make a car payment every month, but I want to pay a few $100.
I explain that to my clients all the time. A lot of my clients in my private investigative practice have been ripped off in frauds, and I have steps that I take to try to recover their money, with the last one being to refer this to the FBI for an investigation. But I always tell them, I go, listen, you may get the mental satisfaction of seeing the guy who ripped you off in an orange jumpsuit, but you cannot rely on the federal government to be your collection agency. No. They're just not good at that.
No. And honestly, they have to balance. So the federal government has to. A lot of people, he should pay this back and liquidate this and do this and work every day. And listen. The government has to balance. Like, you have to be able to pay your bills.
Right.
That's the other thing. Right. Like, there's a balance there. I understand this guy might be making $5,000 a month, but he's not giving you $4,000.
Right.
After rent, car payment, insurance, health insurance, you lay it all out.
He needs to be able to sustain a life so he can maintain a job to pay you back the wages that we're garnishing from his.
But a lot of people don't. They don't understand that. They get so emotional, they stop realizing. They start. So getting a few $100, paying in a few $100 a month makes me feel better. It gives them something. They're never. Well, first of all, the individual victims that I owe less than $30,000 to. If you total all of it together,
here's a question
it's all
for
banks.
In the charging documents, did they identify the victim financial institutions by name, or did they try to mask their names?
No, it was First Union, Bank of America.
Yeah. It's interesting because the U.S. Department of Justice doesn't really have a guideline, so every individual prosecutor gets to decide the extent that they're going to include the victim names in the charging document. And that's true for whether it's a business, a bank, or a individual. Sometimes they put initials down. Sometimes they'll say First National Bank of Hawaii, but sometimes they'll say, a financial, victim A. And so I do these daily crime stories on my Instagram feed at Simon Investigations. And I always throw in the victim's name, even if they're trying to, not the individual victims, the people. I don't want to out a person, especially if it's a sex crime or something horrible like that. But if it's a business that had an embezzlement from it, it's interesting to me and to my viewers to know that this was a snowmobile rental place in Colorado, or a small business of some kind, or not saying the victim did anything wrong, but it makes my story better. But a lot of times that's masked, and you can't see it in the charging documents. What they don't understand is that I can just go to the last serial on Pacer in the court filings and look at the order of restitution. Right. And they always list the names of the people who are due restitution in this case, whether it's Joe Bob's snowmobile rental or Susie Q. I'm not going to out Susie Q, but I'm happy to out the snowmobile rental place. I'm sympathetic to them and all that. So it's interesting the way they try to mask those things.
Yeah, it should. I mean, it should be public. To me, it's public records.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. And if you were sitting in court, you'd know.
Yeah, and it's not like they did anything wrong anyway. You're a victim.
They're victims. Right, exactly. I mean, a lot of what I'm trying to do is also impart to small businesses about the internal controls you can put in place to not be ripped off in, say, an embezzlement. And so having an actual business that I can use for that war story ends up hopefully being helpful to my small business viewers.
I was going to say, I was watching one of yours. You're like, it's amazing how much these small businesses will go out of their way to secure their inventory. You said, but they'll leave their checkbook laying around.
I mean, that's the number one. I mean, again, we'll come back and have an embezzlement episode, but the number one embezzlement out there is just some accountant stealing a check and writing it to themselves or to their creditors, and then like covering up in the accounting records. Though again, businesses like you quoted me at will move heaven and earth to protect their inventory, but they'll leave the checkbook just sitting out in the unlocked drawer. It makes no sense.
What was it? Did the Kellogg's one with Zach, where they were stealing checks out of these industrial parks, right, where they have these massive businesses like Coca-Cola or whatever. Like, this is back when they were mailing out checks.
Yeah,
like some wheat factory or wheat farm somewhere is billing Coca-Cola $400,000 a month, and they're mailing out the checks. They take these checks and they've got the community mailbox, and they're just putting the checks in it. So they would reach in there and grab checks, and then they would wash the checks, and they'd go open up they go get like this is 20 years ago, an occupational license, and they'd put Joe's Wheat Farm of Tampa Bay. And then they go open a bank account, and then they could deposit the check, or either wash it, or they would just deposit the actual check. Yeah. And then the checks would go through. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, you can do it with incoming checks or outgoing checks. Incoming. I had a mailroom case when I was an FBI agent. I was a member of the Black Hebrew Israelites. You ever deal with them?
No.
That's a whole thing. That's a whole episode unto itself. But he was diverting checks coming in. He worked in the mailroom of a hospital, and he opened up a bank account with the name of the hospital and data processing on the end. So like Rush Presbyterian data processing. And so the checks would come in from like an insurance company. He would just deposit the money, and eventually got enough money together that he could move to Dimona, Israel, where the Black Hebrew Israelite settlement is.
You were saying, though, you wanted to write your judge a letter for what?
To thank him for being such a swell guy.
I hate to put it like that, but yeah, I mean, I am irritated at the length that he, in any manner, even though I get the guidelines and all that crap, the fact that he felt in any way that I deserved 26 years and 4 months. If he had really looked at the case, which of course he doesn't really get to, right? Because I pled guilty.
I mean, everything he knows is from the probation pre-sentence report.
Correct, right. And I get it. That's where I fall. And I'm sure in his mind, he thought anybody who's is scaling or scoring out at 26 years and 4 months is a scumbag. So I'm sure he looked at that and said, "Oh, this guy's a piece of garbage," and gave me 26 years.
Was that the low end of the guidelines?
It was the low end of the guidelines. I pled guilty.
Okay.
But and then sometimes I look at it and I think, imagine what he looked at. I got like 4 different jurisdictions. I've been on the run 3 years. There are over 50 or 60 newspaper articles, right? The internet's just now starting, right? This is 2006, whatever. And he's sentencing me in the middle of the financial crisis. Not in the middle. That's not true. It wasn't 2008. It was late 2007. So this is like December of like 2007.
Toward the beginning of when things are
Correct.
starting to melt down.
For the last 6 months, every single newspaper, because it happened for 6 months before 2008, which is when they did the Dodd-Frank, when they did the TARP. So that's why they call it the 2008 financial crisis. So in late 2007, all he's saying for 6 months, banks failing, banks failing, banks failing, banks failing. So he's this.
And he finally has a face to associate with this social problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I get it. You know, I sometimes I get irritated. Like, I'm like, nah, bro, you didn't deserve. And then I think, yeah, but he doesn't know. He doesn't really know.
Yeah.
So, kind of I thought, write him a letter saying, hey, like, not sure about 26 years. I don't even know how to say it. That's the problem is I don't even know how to start the letter. But I want to say, look, I get it. Here's what happened in prison. You know, I don't know if you've looked into it or not, but I kind of rehabilitated myself in prison. Yeah. Here's what I'm doing now. Wanted to let you know, see, like me saying no hard feelings, like he's a federal judge. He's like, I don't give a fuck if you have hard feelings.
I think it's I know enough judges. The ones who were former prosecutors go on to be judges. I still stay friends with them, and that's the type of thing that gives them a sense of comfort that the system can work, that people are rehabilitatable, and that no one should be judged by the worst thing they did in their lives.
Right.
It doesn't define you as a person. I think that's that kind of lesson, bringing that to a judge who all day long is just seeing scumbag after scumbag after scumbag, might help him be more reflective for other defendants.
And this is I agree, which is everything you just said is why I want to write the letter. The problem is probably like the hardest letter I've ever had to write. And I'm a guy who clearly doesn't have a problem talking.
You've written books. You could write a letter.
I know, right? But it's been churning in my head. My wife, Jess, wrote a letter to her prosecutor. He wrote a letter back basically saying, listen, you saved my life.
I've met Jess. I've had dinner with Jess, with you. Delightful person. I've never asked what she did.
She was a drug addict.
Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah, she was a drug addict. She's selling drugs under a guy named Wildman.
Like biker guy?
Like a former, and I always say like a former truck driver. He's a huge guy, supposedly like 6'1" or 6'2", wears overalls, very Okeechobee, wears overalls, a wife beater, probably in his late 50s at the time.
Were they in a relationship?
No, okay. She was at that time. She's in her early 20s.
Yeah.
So she's not. Well, no, that's not true. She was probably 27, 28. So she is a drug addict, and she's selling drugs, like a lot of drug addicts.
What's her drug of choice?
Meth, because that's what Okeechobee basically has.
Yeah.
They have dairy farms and methamphetamine. And so she's selling drugs to support her habit.
Feed her habit, yeah.
Of course, when you listen to her tell it, she's also selling like half a pound here, half a pound, and that's a lot of meth.
Yeah.
The problem is that, the way she explains it, like those types of things fell in her lap, where some guy comes to her and says, look, can you get rid of this for me? She's like, I'm not trying to sell that much, but this guy's trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, she's not Pablo Escobar.
Right.
Yeah.
But, so she's hooked on drugs, gets off, gets back on, gets off, gets back on. But either way, I sold the whole time. She said, because the truth is, there was no job I could get that would help. She had slowly had three daughters. She said, there's no job I can get to help me support these kids.
Yeah.
She's like, other than selling drugs. So she's able to sell drugs. Well, this goes on for a few years, and she's working under Wildman. And this case is insane too, because this guy's trying to have people murdered who were cooperating. Like they're actively trying to get him, and he's sending people off to like kill people. Like this is a serious guy, but to her, she's like, he was always cool to me. Like he never had any problems. Yeah. Of course, she didn't cooperate against him. So, but the point is that at some point, after following him for so long, they eventually bust him and 50 other people. She's one of 50, and she's ranked like in the top 5 or 10, right underneath him.
Which agency? Is it DEA or FBI?
It was DEA, FBI, Okeechobee Task Force, which is just a local task force, or local counties, and that was it. course, and then they busted everybody but her and Wild Man. She was on the run for like a month.
Did they paint it as a
basically-
drug conspiracy? So she had to basically eat the time for all the drugs that she never used or saw or anything.
Correct.
Like that.
Correct. And half the people went to state. Like 20 of them went to state. 30 of them went to went federal. She got, I want to say, 6 years. She did the drug program.
Good.
So she ended up doing almost 5 years before she went to the halfway house and met me. And it's funny too because like she doesn't hang out with including most of her family, basically because they're all still on, not all of them. Like her sister's great, her dad's great, but the rest of them all have drug problems, in and out of prison. All of her cousins, nephews, everybody in and out of prisons. Since I've known her, probably 3 of her family members have died.
Oh my!
All drug related, and she just doesn't. It's like her and I, and that's it.
Yeah, and no relapses.
No, nothing like. It's funny too. When she tells stories, when she'll tell me some story about something that happened, and I look at her like I don't even know who that person is.
She's this beautiful, delightful lady. She's super smart, really well spoken, sweet. Just everything about her is just delightful.
I cannot. The things that she'll tell me, I can't. I'm like,
well, it's not her. It's the drugs.
I know. I'm
right?
looking at you like, who are you? And she's like, I know. You have to understand. It was. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, she outrunning the cops, like not once, but like 3 different times.
You ever had her on the show to tell her story?
Yeah, she made us take it down. She's super shy. She hates it. Luckily, she did Ian Bick, and Ian Bick ain't taking it down. So her story is up on Ian Bick's.
Yeah.
And I wrote her story. I actually wrote a synopsis of her story. It's on my website.
Help her get focused for telling it verbally, or you just did it for yourself? Did you do it to assist her for interviews and stuff?
No, I did it. Well, I have a website that has probably, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 true crime stories. They're like synopses. They're like large articles.
I'm actually scrolling through her page right now, looking at some of the photos.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
great.
so she's comfortable having that out there in the univerce. She just doesn't want to be the one telling the story.
Oh no, if it was up to her, she'd make me take that down too.
If only she had some pull over the editor.
exactly. Oh, listen. We took her off this website, off of
YouTube.
Because she swore she'd redo it. She's never redoing it. But luckily, I don't mind because Ian Bick has it up. And I have the story. I actually pitched the story. We've pitched the story, and I have a production company that's interested in pitching it and trying to get it turned into some kind of a series or something.
That'd be kind of neat.
Listen, because it's a fascinating story, but yeah, you talk to Jess, and
She's delightful. Like I said, she's great.
Can't
and
imagine.
my wife and I talked about her. Like, what do you think she did? I go, I have no idea. She's like, I mean, she's tatted up, but other than that, she's very girl next door. I mean, works hard, is super, nice. So I'm like, it had to be drugs. And
it's Okeechobee, and not just that. Listen to this. Every time we go to Okeechobee, like we'll go to Okeechobee to see her sister or see her dad or something. As we enter the county, I'm telling you, something happens. She gets.
It's like Severance, where's
Yeah, exactly. It's Severance. Exactly.
Did she develop an accent?
Oh, as soon as we go over, we're driving down a road, and she's like, oh yeah, she's like, yeah, right up here. She said, this is where so and so did such and such. We got into a car accident. She goes, and she was talking shit. She goes, I tell you, makes me wanna. And I look at her like, what the fuck just happened? Like, who just like? I'll look at her and she'll go, and I go, what's happening? She's like, She's saying she's a shit talker. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, and I'm like, what? Like shit? Like who are you right now? And she's like, I'm sorry. I'm like, every time we come in this place, you start. You can take the Okeechobee. You can take the girl out of Okeechobee. But yeah, every time. And listen, as soon as she's like, oh yeah, and that over there. Oh, she's like, we killed a such and such over there, and this, and the cop showed up, right? So here's what we did. And I'm thinking, you're telling me stories about like this right here. I outran the cops right here, and I pulled it, and you're like, outran the cop? What? What happened?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, you met in a halfway house.
By the time, all that was gone by the time. But yeah, she wrote her prosecutor. Prosecutor wrote her back. I interviewed her prosecutor for the story.
Nice.
I interviewed her prosecutor, the head of the task force, the Okeechobee sheriff. I've interviewed, was it only one of her co-defendants? I've interviewed a bunch of people about her story.
Nice.
But yeah, her prosecutor, her prosecutor was funny too, because he was the only, he said, what's funny? He said there was like, he said out of all those girls, she was the only one that I thought He was her and one other girl that I thought, you know what, like she's got a chance.
They're savable.
Yeah, she's got a chance, and that's when she ended up writing that letter, telling him, "Look, you saved my life."
Yeah. Well, it's good. Was the prosecutor out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale?
I think he was out of Miami because
drugs.
Okeechobee, there's nothing out there.
Right. There's no judicial district there.
Yeah.
Cool.
You said with your letter to the judge, would that be where you would ask to pay the victims back first?
I thought about that. That's another thing I had thought about was but there's only so much interaction a judge can have with you.
Yeah.
And now once you're off probation, I don't know if that changes. It may not change at all, especially you can't ask a judge for legal advice. They're going to be like, yeah, I can't tell. He can't give me any legal advice.
Yeah,
So I can't
hire a lawyer.
Yeah. It's like, I got to go to a lawyer. How much do I dump into a lawyer? I really could probably just file it, on my own. And what I'm interested in doing is saying, look, first of all, two things have happened since I was sentenced. One, about 18 months after I was sentenced and went to prison, they changed the law. So the law used to be you just agreed with the prosecutor on what you owed, and then they determined who you owed the money to. Mm-hmm. After that, if in financial cases, there's now two sentencings. One is your sentencing, and one is a sentencing based on who you owe the money to and how much. In that case,
that's not stipulated in the plea agreement?
What it is how much you owe, but not
the breakdown.
Right. Okay. So here's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
I think it may be before you plead guilty.
Right.
Where to try and let's narrow down, because a lot of times they'll arbitrate. Let me put it this way. My PSR, my pre-sentencing report says I owe $9.5 million. So when I got it, I was like, I don't know 9.5. There's no way I owe 9.5.
Yeah, I never had that. Yeah.
Right. I've never seen 9.5. We start arguing.
Yeah.
And they drop it down to the next one, which is below 6. Now, in my opinion, I don't owe 6.
Right.
I owe less than 6. So, but that's it. But they said 6. And that was it. Like, there's no more arguing. Like, you're just trying to get as little time as possible at this point. So at that point, I could care less how much money it was. But now you look back and you're like, okay, well, wait a minute. I'm paying back $6 million. I don't owe $6 million. Mm-hmm. Like, these other people got a ton of money. You sold a bunch of property. So here's the thing. The way it works now, after I was sentenced, of course, and you can't go back, is that they go to all the banking, and everybody that's a victim has to provide a written account of what you owe them and an affidavit saying, look, did I so-and-so say this is what he owes me, and here's why.
Like the math, show your work.
Correct. And they send it in. I know many, many guys sentenced after me where the government's saying, you owe $10 million. Turns out it's 2.1.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these institutions, they're just not interested in going through the process. They don't want to put somebody on it to pull the file.
Are we accruing interest? There's a lot of variables.
Right. And they're not interested. Like, they don't have anybody scheduled even to say this is what you exactly owe. And they don't want to file it, sign the agreement, and they don't want to lie to the federal government. Like, they don't know. So you end up getting a reduced sentence or a reduced amount of money. So I never got that. I didn't have that. So that's one issue I have. I'd like to know, like, what is the real amount? It's not $6 million. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing is, by the time I was sentenced, and within 6 months to a year after, maybe within a year after, 80% of those federal institutions are gone.
Yeah.
There's nobody's
Washington Mutual, and
they're gone.
Yeah.
Nobody's there to, even if you bought it, the files are gone, the records are gone. There's no way for you to determine whether I owe you $350,000.
There's nobody in the accounts receivable department saying, when are we going to get this money?
Right. Well, and the other thing is too, you know what they would do? Like, if you look at the amounts, it's like Bank of America lent you on this loan $118,000. And what do I owe? $118,000. It's like, wait a minute, I bought a house with that.
Yeah.
Did you sell the house? How much did you get back for the house? That they don't do any of that.
That was the bitch of the mortgage fraud cases I worked, is that you have to, but sometimes the house is even appreciated in value. And yeah, exactly. And so the sentencing guidelines were always super low on my mortgage fraud cases. You're a weirdo because you got so much time, because but by the time you actually liquidate the asset in the foreclosure process, it kind of pays back the loan.
Right. Sometimes. Yeah. Or there's potential loss, right? Sometimes it's potential.
Intended loss.
Yeah. Intended, sorry, not potential. So what ends up so that's the other issue I have. And so the other one is too, I'm never paying off $6 million. Let's say it stays $6 million. I'm never paying off $6 million. It's paid down. It's like 5.7 now. So I'm never paying that off.
But also no one's really trying to collect it actively, right?
Right. But I want to pay. I'm not having a problem paying. But here's my problem is that, look, what I might pay is in the next 10 years or however long I'm paying for the next 10, 15 years, I might be able to pay off 50 or 100,000. But right now, I don't think anybody at Bank of America every quarter when they get a payment for $120 is excited. What I would like to do is, can we restructure this so that my payments go to pay off these 4 victims first?
The humans.
The humans, and then pay off these institutions. Like, can we do that? Mm-hmm. And then I wouldn't have a big problem paying $200 or $300 a month.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I would like to figure out. I can't do it in the letter because the judge can't advise me.
I think there's a U.S. Department of Justice Office of Financial Litigation that owns your case right now, among hundreds of other cases.
Supposed to be trying to collect.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed. So if you're truly looking to write a letter to the judge saying, thank you for letting me out a decade early, that's cool. I don't think the judge is the one who's going to restructure who gets paid first. I think the U.S. Department of Justice, Department of Financial Litigation is the ones who you would need to write to.
Well, I would think that the judge would have to make it a court order. Because as of right now, I'm paying into them and they're divvying it up equally. I know this because one of my victim's son reached out to me and yelled at me on Instagram and said, and I when he explained, he's like, he said, made some crack about, why aren't you paying? Well,
I get $9.
He said, why don't you tell everybody how you haven't paid back your restitution? I said, well, wait a minute now. I said, I have an agreement with the federal government. This was when I was still on probation. Yeah. I said, and every month I pay restitution per my agreement. Yeah. And he came back and he said, those little that little measly check that my dad gets every 2 or 3 months isn't shit compared to the amount of money that you owe him. And I was thinking, I don't know how much money I don't owe anybody more than 8 or 10,000.
Do you think they chop it up equally, or do you think they prorate it based on the amount that you owe? I don't know either.
He was irritated.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't think he was hurting.
I would always tell my crime victims, they were like, well, when do I get paid back? I go, you get paid back. It's going to be an embarrassing amount when you get money back after this guy gets out of prison, because his earning potential is severely diminished after he's done time. It's not like this guy's going to be living like a baller.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't commit fraud anymore. And the judge was very clear about that.
Yeah, they frown on that.
Yeah. So, yeah. Although I do know one guy who was found guilty for running a Ponzi scheme and started a second Ponzi scheme to pay off the victims of the first Ponzi scheme, which he did.
I had a guy like that.
Yeah. Which he did, by the way. Now, the second Ponzi scheme he got caught for, of course. Bummer. Yeah. Right? So it didn't work out.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. What are we doing?
All right. How many views? What's the highest amount of views on a short from this episode? What are we hitting? 10 million?
Listen, so right now on the channel, well, no, not well, on our shorts channel, which we have shorts on the main channel too, but on our primary shorts channel, the highest viewed video is 24 million views.
And who was on that video with you, Matt?
I think at one point they have a quarter of a second screenshot where I'm like, look at the camera. And other than that, it's all you.
Thank you, baby. It's the cash register.
And then after it got to, I don't know, it was 18 million or something or 20. I get a text from you saying, I'm basically the face of your channel. When am I getting my royalties?
Again, you paying for my hotel tonight? Nope. You paying for the 3 hours of gasoline I used to get here? Nope.
What's funny is the first time we asked you to come on, you said, so what kind of compensation do you provide? I was like, no compensation.
I know.
You're just coming, or we could do a remote.
You think you're Rogan? Well, in any case, I'm glad I came, and it's worth my time because I truly enjoy coming on your show and talking to you. I regard you as a good friend at this point, and so coming out and seeing you every 6 weeks or so is a pleasure. And I'm not looking to shake you down for money. And I hope you make $1 million off of my stories.
And I still wouldn't be paid back. Wouldn't be able to pay back the money I owe.
Yeah.
All right, we good?
Yeah, I think so.
Can I wrap it up? Because I've had to go to the bathroom for about 45 minutes. Okay. All right, hold on.
Do your magic.
All right. Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. We're going to leave all of Tom's links to his Instagram, TikTok. That's all you have. Instagram,
I got a YouTube, but no one watches it.
And new clips channel.
Yeah,
I got a hot
new clips channel, remixes.
That's right. We're leaving and his hot new shorts channel on YouTube. So we're gonna leave all the links to his stuff. Very good. I wonder we should add it up. Like it's probably I'll bet all of them. So it's not just that one. There's other ones that have like millions, right?
If you mean from your feed or
From our stuff, right?
yeah, you should sort yours like as far as like popular views. See who the top 10 are.
I got something tells
Right
me
here, right here.
So, hundreds of millions of views. So check out his content. He speaks in what is the term?
Clippanese.
Clippanese. So the links will be
So
in the
racist.
The links will be in the description box. Click on them, go there, subscribe, follow. Once again, really appreciate you guys watching. Please consider joining our Patreon. It's $10 a month. It really does help Colby and I make these videos. Thank you very much. See ya.
See ya.